starting from 1 week ago, Saturday, we started working on a new system, a help desk system, a service desk system, a ticketing system, whatever you want to call it. We're going to build it in PowerApps, and we're going to build it together. So what we started last week was we started defining our project, and we started talking about all the different entities or the database tables, the SharePoint list we're going to build out that this application will be built on. Now, I do work during the week, but on my lunch break on Wednesday, I did a little check-in with you guys, did a little live stream Wednesday. So all these live streams are available right now. And if you go over to the YouTube channel, go over to the playlists. If you're looking for something, go over to the playlist. I organize all the videos specifically for you guys so you can find it easily and quickly. So there is one here. Let's see if I can find it here. It's actually the second item, building a PowerApps help service desk system. So right now there's 3 videos. I believe that would include this video as well. So if you go in there, if you've missed any of them, you can go back and watch them and follow along from there. And then, so this is actually going to be a course. And I'm sort of building out the course along with this app. And I'm looking for feedback, and I'm looking to provide value to you guys. But I have a Facebook group. I call it the PowerApps Tutorial Insiders group for Facebook. So if there's any type of problems that you guys have as you're building your app, you guys can ask me questions in there. So if there's any issues that you guys have, we can address those there. And also we can address them here on these live streams, okay? But let's say that you're watching these videos a month or 2 from now and you're trying to get caught up. You could go into join the Facebook group and see all the issues that people have had and ask your questions there as well. Now, in order to join that, what I have is a student intake form. And it's like a free survey you can fill out, and it just tells me about where you're at, where you're trying to going, where are you trying to get going with PowerApps, and because I want to make sure that I'm giving you guys exactly what you're looking for. Okay, so I think I know what I'm doing as far as when I'm building the apps, but perhaps I'm not spending time in an area where you guys like, hold on, you just did all this stuff here. Can we slow down and just have a session on that? Because there's a lot of missing stuff there. So I want to encourage you guys to interact. So speaking of that, I'm going to go to the comment section. And so Rodrigo says, yay, or yeah. Very cool, Rodrigo. Thanks for joining in. And PowerApps design. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be doing a lot of design this PowerApps session. This live stream, and we're going to be looking at our database design. We're also going to be looking at our UI design as well. Okay, so planning out and designing the user interface. Okay, and Gerald says, appreciate your participation this morning, Darren. Thanks. Well, thanks for coming by, man. And yeah, absolutely. So I'm so glad to see the participation here. Feels like I'm just not some old guy talking to a camera every week. So I really do enjoy these live streams. So yeah, Galim says hi. So I do apologize if I mispronounce. I'm going to try to pronounce everybody's name, and if I pronounce it wrong, I do apologize. Please forgive me. But I really appreciate you guys being here with me. Okay, we also have Vladimir. Hi all for another great video, Darren. Well, thanks, man. Victor says, hi, Darren and PowerApps. Greetings from Spain. So my in-laws, my wife, are from Spain and Puerto Rico. So hello back. In fact, my in-laws just came back from Spain this week. Thanks, Darren. Well, you're welcome. All right. So, and I'll be doing that. I'll be going to the comment section as the comments come in. It's sort of like the nice perk. If you guys join me live and help me out while I'm in the thick of it, we can sort of talk back and forth here. Now, I do have an idea for you guys. I'd like to pitch this to you. So right now I use StreamYard. I'm considering going to maybe a Zoom format, and perhaps maybe I'll do a Zoom format in the midweek sessions. But I sort of like to bring you guys on and have you guys talk to me in real time. So you guys have the opportunity to do that rather than just chatting here. Now I can bring people on, and in the insiders group, I've offered them like, hey, who wants to come on and show me their app so far? and I haven't had any takers yet. So I'm a little sad about that. So I'm still looking for a volunteer or a few volunteers, and I'll send you a link to my StreamYard, and so I'll bring you in on the show, on the live stream, and it could be in the midweek live stream as well. Okay. So anyhow, so let's go back and look at what we've done this last week. Now, what we have what we've done so far. Let's go to our document. So we have a document here. The link to this document. This is a Google document. I've shared it in the Facebook group, and just in case anybody is new and they want to get in on the group, I'm going to paste that link here so you guys can join the group. So I'll provide that there. Okay, very good. So we have this document here, and we pretty much talk about what we're doing. Now, think about this, guys. I have a live stream where I talk about freelancing. So, what are your guys' goals? A lot of you are looking either for a PowerApps job, or you're looking to be a PowerApps freelancer. Ultimately, you're looking to make money with PowerApps, of course, right? Well, why else would we be doing? I mean, doing software development, doing PowerApps is fun in itself, but probably you're not just writing little games and taking up as a hobby. You're actually wanting to do something of value, probably for some type of organization or your family or something. And so anyway, I do have a live stream down here. Let me go into this, and it's probably going to try to play one. So I'm going to pause that. All right. So it's actually my second live stream, and it's for freelancing. Okay. So I'll click on that one and show you what it is. Okay. So if you do a YouTube search for Darren Neese and PowerApps gigs, jobs, and freelancing, I talk about all that there. Okay. And why I mention that is because I do some freelance. I work, a regular 9 to 5 during the week. But on the weekends, besides creating YouTube videos, I do a little bit of freelancing. Now, I don't have as much time as I'd like to spend on it. But what I'd like to tell you, whether you're on a job or you're freelancing, these are the skills that we've talked about this, or what we've been doing last Saturday, this Saturday, and this midweek, all the way up until we start opening up PowerApps, are essential skills that you're going to need in a job. But more importantly, if you plan on being a freelancer, want to do any type of freelancing stuff on the side, I'm going to highly emphasize that you get these skills down. Okay. So don't just skip over this stuff. This is really important stuff. Okay. So, I know it's probably not as exciting as PowerApps, but what you're going to find, this stuff is actually very fun. But you need to at least force yourself to do it at least once to realize how fun it is. Okay. So for example, planning this out, it gets you to think about all kinds of things that you need to, and I'm going to make this bigger for you guys. Okay. It's going to make you think about the project in a much thorough, deeper way than you wouldn't have done initially. Okay. So comment here, Vivek. Most wanted task, SharePoint library, PowerApps form. Okay, very good. Now, I talk a little bit about in a lot of my videos. I do have a free guide out there. A lot of my videos, they'll have a little link in the description about a free guide. In fact, let me see if I can go. A lot of my live streams, perhaps I don't. Let me see if it's down here. Yeah. Okay. So a lot of my videos, you'll see this free PowerApps guide. Okay. So if you open that up, this is a free resource that I provide to you guys. Okay. And you go through, and so these are all the different chapters. So one of the things I talk about is, should you use forms in PowerApps? So I won't ruin the suspense there, but or maybe I will. I don't like forms very much, and I go into why I don't like them and perhaps why you wouldn't want to use forms. But if you're a beginner, you're just beginning out, I think that you absolutely should learn the forms. Okay, and I have a whole series. If you look here on my live streams, where I start to build out a Northwind Traders application using the old Access database, okay? And we use forms all the way through. So if you want a good example of a real world application that you build, using forms. That's the one that I do. That's one because we do relationships using forms and doing lookup columns and that type of stuff that work with forms. So I thought I'd mention that, but yeah, but we're definitely using SharePoint. So thanks for stopping by, Vivek. All right, very good. Now, going back here is, so what I'm going to tell you guys, this is going to be after you make yourself do the design work up front, before you get into Power Apps, you're going to realize how fun it is. And it's actually going to make your project go by much quicker. The last thing you want to do is just open up Power Apps like, oh, I'm going to put a button here and a gallery here and a form here and a menu and get going here. I can whip out a few forms and either show my employer, my boss, my potential client, whatever. And immediately it's just, you're almost causing a disaster for yourself. And that if you don't put a lot of forethought into it, a lot of times you end up wasting time and money down the road because you designed it a certain way. And then there's something that comes up that perhaps you would have uncovered if you do this design work. Okay. So I really want to emphasize that. And also I'd like to share with you guys, if you go into, gee whiz, there is, I'm going to try to step back to my playlists again here and direct you guys to another playlist called Zero to Hero. It's a Power Apps course, and it's pretty much, again, I need to pause that here, okay? So this is actually a part of me building out the course where I'm teaching the basics of, and I've been posting these in the insiders group as well. Okay. So one of the things I have, defining the application. So what we've done last Saturday, that is a 15-minute video where I go much thoroughly into why you want to do it and the steps, how, and I do it on a whiteboard. So I have a whiteboard over here to the side. Sometimes I can pull that out. The trouble with the whiteboard a lot of times is you got all kinds of reflection from these lights. So, okay. So I wanted to mention that. So we've got defining the application. We also have gathering requirements. So we did that. And one of the pieces of homework I gave you guys to do before today is you guys are writing this application yourselves. Now I'm doing it myself, but you guys are doing it. I'm going to help you with any problems that you have along the way. Okay. And you guys can see what I'm doing, but what the necessary portion of this is that you're doing the work, you're creating your own. And what's beautiful about that, guys, is that for a job interview or you're trying to get a gig, freelance gig, is they're trying to assess if you know what you're doing, if you know Power Apps or not. And what I found, I never get asked any type of interview questions like, how do you do X with Power Apps, or explain to me licensing, or that type of stuff. What I do is I show them video. I've got link after link of different, and you guys have seen examples of my Power Apps I've shared on the channel. But I've got like a whole host of other ones that I can share with people. I don't like to share them publicly because, it's there's not sample data in it, if that makes any sense. So, so I have those sample applications. I've sort of built myself a portfolio. It's so important if you're looking for a job, you're looking for freelancing, that you got that portfolio. It's like, yeah, you want to check out, you want to make sure I know my stuff, check out my portfolio. And if they look and they see, okay, he's built out this app. And if they have a question, they can ask you, well, how did you do this screen exactly? And you can say, oh, yeah, well, I just did it this way. And because you've built the app yourself, you know exactly how to answer that. So it shows somebody who's looking to hire you that, he's done all this stuff. So obviously, if I have an issue, I have a situation, I have a requirement for an application, this guy or this gal will be able to figure out whatever needs to happen on that screen and build out that application. Okay. So anyhow, all right. So we talked about the what, the who, the when, the where, the why. These are all the roles, okay, for our application. All right. So I'm going to move on here. Gathering requirements. So we talked about gathering. We're going to identify nouns, which is a person, place, thing, or idea that the application needs to manage. Okay. So if you get a potential customer to talk about, Rodrigo says, wash hands, wash hands, wash hands. I think that might be an emoji or something. Perhaps maybe 2 hands, maybe applause. So thank you. All right, very good. So person, place, thing, or idea. You get the customer, the client to start talking about what they need from you, okay? And these are all the steps I have to do in order to give somebody an estimate, a time estimate and a cost estimate, which is what they're looking for. They contact me on, let's say, Fiverr, and they're like, hey, I need an application. Can you do it? How long is it going to take? How much are you going to charge me for that? And they're probably going to be doing some price comparisons and stuff. And I'm probably the most expensive guy out there on Fiverr, and I get tons of jobs, and I turn down tons of jobs because I just don't have the time. And I'm trying to think where I was going with that. Oh, yeah. So I have to go through all these steps. I almost have to design the application to know exactly. So if you don't go through the design, you may not know exactly how many screens you're going to build out. You don't know how many database tables you're going to have. I mean, if you end up thinking, a lot of times these people will come to you and say, hey, this is a spreadsheet. I need to automate this with PowerApps. It's probably just a one screen application. Well, I've shared an example. It's one of my more popular videos. If you look at my inspection app here, if you go to my channel, and you can bring it up right away by clicking on videos, and you can sort by most popular, you're going to find it here near the top, this checklist inspection app. And I talk about that. They had a single spreadsheet, and they said, hey, probably just a single screen. No, it was like a 12 screen application. It was quite involved. It had email capabilities, all kinds of stuff that spreadsheet did not do. So you need to be able to do all this stuff. Okay. That's why it's so important. That's why I'm spending so much time doing this. Okay. So, okay, going on. We've got the requirements. We have our entities. Okay. Homework, finish out these requirements. So you guys are building out this application. The application that you guys are building might be completely different than mine. It might go above and beyond and do things that mine doesn't. Maybe yours is more of a scaled down version, and you just want to get something going that just has a request coming in. Perhaps you need to build an application. This is a very common use case out of PowerApps. You need to build a system that will take some information coming in. Let's say a request. Let's say somebody's requesting leave or time off from work. Okay, you're going to take that request, and there's an approval process, or that needs to be assigned to a manager to approve or decline. And there's a little bit of a workflow. Well, we're handling all that. So you could create your own type of, if we're building this together, I want it to be somewhat similar, okay? It doesn't have to be the same though, okay? So that's why it's important that you guys are following along and doing these requirements. I just don't want you to copy mine, okay? All right, I'm going to scroll down here, design the application. We have business rules and processes. So somebody brought up a service level agreement. Yeah, we might have a service level agreement for our help desk system. Let's say we have to get back to the customer within 1 hour after they place the ticket, or within 24 hours. And so we could build that into the application. That would be part of the requirements, things that we need to think about. But what we've looked at so far is we have this ERD diagram. ERD is an acronym. It stands for Entity Relationship Diagram. Okay. And these are entities. Now they're going to be database tables or SharePoint lists. Okay. But they're also going to be things that we work with within our application. So we call them entities. Okay. Within like the software development world. Okay. And so we want to make sure we have all of our entities defined in our database. Okay. So let's do something. We need to finish up this design, but before we do that, I want to give you an overview of what we're hopefully going to get to later today, okay, within this session. So we're designing the application. What I want to do is, I use a tool called Balsamiq. When I worked at a place there, this was the tool that we used to do wireframes. Now, wireframes are a way to sort of draw out, let me just show you an example of it, okay? So you can build your little, like a user interface, either, sort of design a website, okay? Design your apps. And these little interfaces, they could just take like just a few minutes to create per screen, okay? And now I would say that I just wanted to show you examples, and there might be some better examples here. So PowerApps is a good wireframing system. You can drop over buttons and data tables like a grid and do things, but this is actually even faster. And a lot of times you bring something into PowerApps, you start to show a client, a customer, and PowerApps like, oh, there's no data there. It's like, it almost looks too real. And they're like, well, it doesn't. Okay, yeah, but we need data in there. Okay, yeah, I understand there needs to be data in there. If you present to them let me see if I can click on this. There we go. Look at that. If you present to them something like this, it's obvious that this is a rough sketch. Okay. And it's very obvious. They're like, oh yeah, well, we might need another button in there to take care of X, Y, or Z. And you're like, oh, well, you didn't tell me about that, So listen, I'm going to tell you a secret here, and you might think there's an exception, but there's not. Okay. And the statement is this: when the customer, the client, looks at a screen, that's when you get the rest of your requirements. Okay, so it's very important. So you could spend a few weeks or a few days building out a screen, like, oh, hey, what do you think about this? Well, it is at that point where you get the full requirements without fail, every project. Now, there's a little bit of an exception to that, which is if they already have a system and you're going to build it out. Well, at that case, well, there's no really need to build out a wireframe, right? Because it's going to be exactly what they currently have. Users don't like that. Users do not like a replacement for their system. Because there's always going to be complaints. It's if you're just going to give them exactly what they have, they're like, well, why are we changing? So you're trying to maybe replace a Microsoft Access application. So I deal with that at work. And the thing is, okay, well, in Access you can do this, and you can't do that in your system. So why are we changing? And that question comes up almost from everybody, and it keeps coming up over and over again. So what you almost have to do is give them a few more features, a few more bells and whistles. And of course, project managers like, no, we're not doing any more features. But you need to remind the project manager and everybody involved, like, hey, the people that are going to be using this app, they're not going to really care for this too much, because they're going to look at it and like, why are we doing this? So it's not a high level of perceived value if you just give them like per like, exact duplicate of what they have. So anyway, so when you give them visuals like this, they start to say, wow, okay, yeah, could we add a button up there? And if you did it in a tool like Balsamic or some other, there's all kinds of wireframing tools. There is one called Figma, and that is a system. If you open up PowerApps, let me see if I can do this real quick. If you guys don't know, they just released a new feature within PowerApps. So if you use a wireframing tool, or you just draw it on an app, I actually have a video where I talk about all this. Okay, and let me sort by the newest. Okay, so we have one right here. Turn your sketch into a PowerApps with Express Design. That's the new feature, Express Design. I'm going to pause this here, maybe forward around. So I created in MS Paint a little. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Yeah, right here. So I created an expense report in MS Paint, and it can take a sketch like this and bring it in. And I give my conclusion at the end of the video. And I think it's a technology that's going to be cool as they develop, as it becomes more stable. Okay. Yeah. So Rodrigo says Figma. Yeah. Okay. So Rodrigo, do you do all of your wireframes in Figma? I think it's really popular out there. I didn't know about it before they released this feature, but when they released the feature, I'm like, oh, okay. So this is this Figma thing out here. And I've tried it out. I've looked at it. I'm like, these aren't tools that I'm already familiar with. Let me go in here and say, okay, right here, look, we have an image. So that's what I did. I did an MS Paint. I created some rectangles and I brought it in. And there's also Figma. And it will want your link to your Figma. So they've got a template within Figma for PowerApps, and there's like things you can use, things you can't use. So Rodrigo, have you used this yet? Okay. Nicole says hola. Oh, hello, Nicole. By the way, that is my wife. She does a lot of my marketing and she helps me with my design a lot of times. So what's going to happen? Maybe I'll bring her on as a guest in the show and have her give me feedback on the design that I'm building. Now, she actually helped me build out this application template that you guys see. Okay. And of course it's got my stink all over it. Of course, I like straight lines and borders and that type of stuff. She doesn't necessarily like, she does external facing websites. She uses a lot of WordPress and does all kinds of really cool stuff in Illustrator and Adobe products. And we could build out an interface, and maybe I could bring around on one of our midweek streams and give you guys feedback on any designs that you come up with. I can give my input, but her input is going to be much better. Okay, yeah. So Rodrigo says Figma helps start a good design. Very good. So that's what we're trying to do. So I'm not all that familiar with Figma. Don't have a lot of experience in that. Now, what I will offer any of you that have a lot of good background in Figma and have used a good Figma design and what that Power Apps can use, I would extend this offer to you, which is I could bring you in on one of these live casts or just make a video with you. And I've done some collaboration before. You can see an example of that. I did one with Matthew Devaney, which is my favorite Power Apps blog. Okay, so I'm trying to find, maybe I'll just say Matthew here, and you should find all these. So I released 4 videos with him. So I brought him on. I interviewed him for 50 minutes. I had 20 questions for him. He's got a resource of like 2,000 icons on his website. So I interview him about that, and he gives some tips about getting rid of the Power Apps bar at the top. So definitely check those out, guys. And then he gives a secret to how he creates his blog content. I thought that was really interesting. That's only a minute long. So yeah. So Rodrigo, if you have experience so Rodrigo, I would be interested in talking to you about this and bringing you on the show. Just FYI. Okay. So Nicole says great tool. All right. Very good. Very good. Rodrigo, could you share a sample wireframe you made in Figma, please? Yeah. Microsoft will buy Figma. You're probably right. All right. So Rodrigo, or if anybody else, a lot of times people are a little shy. They don't want to come, and you don't have to share your face, by the way. But I would sort of like to at least have your voice, and it doesn't have to be live. We could just do it through Zoom or Teams, and you can share what you've done or whatever. And then what I'll do is I could edit it and release that video. So your work could be featured here on the channel if you're interested in that. So Rodrigo, I'll extend that offer to you. And if you don't want to do it, I'll extend it to anybody who has, maybe that's watched this video. Okay. All right. So just wanted to mention that. So going back to wireframing. So I would settle on some wireframing tool. What's nice about this, it's black and white. It's very rough. So people understand that, okay, this is almost like a drawing. Okay. So there's a lot of value in that. Now, if you're interested in balsamic, and there's a lot of wireframing tools out there, I'm sort of come to like this tool here. So it's balsamic.com. Okay. And there are 2 different ways that you can use it. You can either download the desktop app and pay for that. That's what I did. I think it was maybe $90 or something like that, and then it was done. If you want to do the cloud, I think you can use either for free if it's just one diagram. So you could use it for free, and a lot of times people do that. But if you use it a lot, you probably want to buy it. Let me see if we've got any type of pricing here. I know the desktop. So here's some really cool examples. Let's open this up. Look at all this cool stuff. So I really like that. I like the roughness of it. And people realize, hey, this is sketch, and it gives them an idea. Well, we could just do whatever we want here. Let's just throw in this idea. And that's what you want at the beginning of a project. You want all this feedback, all the brainstorming up front. Okay. So my fear with Figma is that it almost looks too good. And it's like, oh, okay, that looks nice. I don't want to mess up your design, and it's very easy to do things. So what I've done is I purchased the desktop version of it. So I just brought that up here, and I sort of like that. And then I saved the files locally. So it was a one-time fee. I think it was around $90. Now the cloud version might be $10 a month or something. You might want to check that out. Okay. So here's an example of a wireframe I did for a client when I was speccing out a job. Okay. And so you can see this sort of looks like my application template. I've got a little menu off here to the side. I've got a little screen header. It shows what screen we're on. It's got the application header here at the top. Okay. And data is king. Hello, Darren. I'm working on my app. Should have something ready to show next week. Okay. Very good. So if you can get it ready for Wednesday, I'll do a midweek check-in. I'll take a look at it. If it's not ready, then perhaps we'll look at it. Perhaps I'll bring you on as a guest. So, by the way, guys, Data is King has a YouTube channel, so feel free to check his stuff out. Data is King, I think that you do a lot of stuff with Access, I believe. So, just want to give a shout out. Data is King always faithfully comes by and attends my live streams, which I appreciate. Okay, very good. All right, so let's move on here. What we have is something that we can, we'll probably want to keep a lot of this stuff here. Perhaps we don't want tabs, okay? So we can rip that out, okay? Now we might want to have some fields here and a button. So this is a little save button at the bottom. Maybe a back button at the bottom, something like that. So when we get to designing our screens here in a few minutes, I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to show you how I use this, okay? And you don't have to use an electronic tool. You could be in a meeting. If you're meeting with them physically, just bring a large pad of paper, something really big. You can order them on Amazon for $15 or $20, a good big sketch pad that artists use to draw things. And you can just sort of sketch this out. Make sure you use a pencil, not a pen. And you can draw this stuff out really rough. Like, okay, well, this is or a whiteboard. Okay. And when you're done with the whiteboard, make sure you take pictures and then you email those to them. And then you just use that as your design. Okay. So there's a lot of things that you can do. You don't have to purchase this if you don't want to. All right. So, Rogerio says Figma can, and I don't think it is displaying everything. Okay. You can help create backgrounds, buttons, menus. They look very good. The construction of the apps as a whole by Figma, I have never seen since. Okay, very good. Again, I'd love to bring you on. And all right, so yes, thank you. YouTube channel has Power Apps, Power BI, okay, and Microsoft Access. Very cool. All right, so this is where we're going today. This is how we're going to design our app today. We're going to design our UI, okay? Now, before we can do that, we need to finish up what we started on Wednesday, okay? So this is our diagram, and we probably need to add a few more things. Let me see if I can make it a little bigger here. Yeah, we can size it with the mouse here. I'm really liking this Draw SQL tool, and this is free for like maybe one diagram or so many entities, and I'll probably end up purchasing it. I think it might be something like $10 a month, by the way. So you can check that out. Okay, let's go. I think what I might want to do, so I'm going to size this down. Okay, and I'm going to take this off as a tab. And I'm going to take, well, let's just do something like this. Boom, slap that to the edge, and we'll do this one as well. Okay, so at least we get the entities on there. Okay, so we have requests. Okay, let's look at our requests real quick. Okay, so we've got title. Now you'll see title, ID and title and everything. So Power Apps will create for any Sharepoint list. We have a subject and a body, a requester. We have a person affected. So we can have an admin assistant filling out for an executive or director. Okay, person affected. We also have associated department. Okay, so for example, this is a system for the IT department for their their ticketing system, right? Well, what about facilities? If somebody needs a replacement for a light bulb or something, well, you can use the exact same system for that department, and you don't have to create a completely separate app. We're going to create this app so flexible, at least the one that I'm building. Perhaps you have a change in your requirements and you're not going to build that aspect. It's going to make it more simpler if you don't include it, but I'm going to build out a real system that I would be proud of, that perhaps I could sell, okay, and I could sort of show off, okay? So I want to put as many features in there as possible. Okay, so we have an associated department, which is what that's for. And before we talked about areas. So if you looked at the original Power Apps template, they've got HR as an area, facilities as an area, and IT. But it could be many more than that. Assign to ID and assign to name. Okay, so how I handle foreign keys within SharePoint is I don't do lookup columns. I've found that you come up against some delegation issues that sometimes it's not very easy to get around. Okay, so what you'll do is, instead of creating a lookup column, we'll have a numeric column for the ID. Now, every SharePoint list has an ID, right? So that's the primary key in that one. Okay, so we have assigned to ID, and pretty much any reference to a person is going to be in users. Okay, it's going to be in users there. Uh, so we're going to capture their ID. We're also going to capture probably their full name, whatever we put in title, which will probably be their first and last name. And we could set that up to allow people to put their nickname in there or something like that, but it'll be a string identification. Okay. But the source of truth for their first, last name, their full name, whatever, will reside there in the users table. The assigned to name is just there for ease of access, for reporting, for if we have a gallery listed there and we have the ID, but we need to display it instead of not having to do a lookup over to that users table on each item within a gallery, which will make your application sluggish. Okay. We're going to capture that assigned to name. Okay. So we do that for requester. We have a requester ID, requester name, affected ID, affected name. Okay. Do you see how we do that? Now there are some cases, perhaps, like say, or a request status. So this is probably the biggest thing that trips people up when they build Power Apps, especially with the SharePoint. SharePoint backend is how do you do all these relationships? How do you know how to break down these tables? That's why I'm spending so much time doing this stuff with you, to make sure that you guys got this, to so it doesn't trip you up later on. Okay. Very good. So okay, so in the case of a request, so we've got a request status ID. Now I don't have a request status name because the statuses are going to be like, is it a new ticket? Is it an open? Is it closed? Is it working on? And it'll probably have maybe 3 to 5 items there that won't change very often at all. And what I'll do is I will load that, or we should load that up into a collection when the application starts up, and it's always there. So we don't have to we could do a lookup inside of a gallery, but it's going to be a lookup on a collection that's in memory, okay, which will not make our application sluggish. So therefore, we don't need to capture that name in there, okay? So the same thing for priorities. We have a priority ID, but we don't have a priority title or priority name in there, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. So I've gone down requests. So my question to you guys, looking at the chat now, and so it looks like there is some interest in Figma. So I'll definitely be doing some type of follow-up with Figma just to make sure that you guys get all the information. Maybe run a little run through. I didn't know that really there was that much interest in Figma, but now I know that then perhaps I'll create a video here soon on that. Okay. Okay. So as you guys have been typing up these requirements, what other details about tickets do you need in here? Okay, for requests. This is what I came up with. We could, after we create our design, we could get an idea somewhere along the lines for another field, and that's no big deal. We can sort of be agile here and sort of be flexible. But if you guys have any more ideas for any columns, I would love to hear about it now in the chat. Okay, and I'll be watching it here. Okay, so we got request comments. Okay, so as now that's going to be probably request notes. Okay, so we'll have notes. So that's pretty much done. We have a visibility, and we talked about this last Wednesday. We talked about a like a visibility, and we have these. It's called show levels. So we might have internal to IT or internal to the department or area in which they're completing the ticket. Then you've got like maybe like a global, like anybody could see it, such as the customer or anybody checking up on the ticket, and they could see those external comments, or it could be a comment just for the technician. Okay, maybe they don't want anybody else to see it or don't want to really publish anything. They just want to have a little note there. Okay, so we could do that. Okay, so that's what request comments are for. And I believe we have everything in there. So anything about the date, time, that's going to be automatically created within SharePoint for us. So we've got a created by, modified by. So we have a date time stamp on those two things, and we know who did it. All right, assignments. Okay, so we have an assignment, request assignments, okay, which deals with users. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to maximize this. So as this ticket comes in, service desk might answer a phone, might look at an email, and it's assigned to them. As they're either looking at it, they're creating the ticket, it's assigned to them. And they're like, okay, well, somebody needs to go to their computer and maybe reboot their computer for them or do something. They're going to hand it off to, so you got service desk that it might come into, then you've got desktop support, people that help, like staff that help people, the end users, with their physical hardware. Okay, the laptops, maybe they need another monitor, their monitor isn't working, whatever. Maybe there's something that a ticket that came in with a shared printer or something. Perhaps desktop support would handle that. They're probably the most mobile of all of IT because they might have to go out to a different building or go to somebody's physical location. So you see that ticket would be assigned at first the service desk person that handles the ticket, then would be assigned to that person. They could be the same person. Maybe it's a one-man shop. Okay, so it's always assigned to the same person, but we need to create the application so that it's flexible to handle a really large organization. Okay, and then perhaps the desktop support person says, "Oh, this is actually a networking problem." So it's many people are affected. It's not regarding hardware. It's more like something. Let's say there's a switch or a router out, or there's some issue with the network. Well, that ticket would be assigned, and you've got all these comments and assignments going through. Okay, and you got comments as they're being assigned. It's like the service support, like, okay, this is a physical problem with this person's hardware. I'm assigning it to desktop support, so it might be that comment. And then and even within that, we could have the show level, so it would either be visible to everybody or the users, internal department, or for that person themselves. Okay, so we can sort of repurpose that as, or capitalize on that table as well. So I see some more comments coming in here. Type of request: tech, electricity, and mobile. Okay, very good. So that is another idea. Okay, absolutely. I'm trying to think. Let me sort of think about. Let's see. Look at this other comment you have here. Type of request: technology, furniture, network, hardware. Okay, so this is a good point, Liliana. Thanks for coming by. We have departments out here, so we could create more departments. Okay, so we could say within. I know when I worked at my previous place, uh, it was a large. It was a state agency, and they had, sort of within IT, they had um, a group that handled telephone type of requests, a telephone type of tickets, and they were still in IT. So the ticket would come in and we just assign it to them, but we could almost create that as a completely separate um, department. Absolutely. So it could be handled separately. And so we would just create a different department or a cost center. We'd have a cost center number in there and a manager for that cost center. So you can split down an IT department into several departments. Or let me give you another example. We, at that particular place, we outsourced all of our printer needs to a company. So they handle anything coming in for a printer related. Oh, the printer jammed, or hey, I need a new printer, whatever. It comes in. It was handled by this other company that was there on premise. Okay, and they would install printers, remove printers, they would service them, put new toner, new paper, whatever is anything having to do with printers, it would just go to them. So what we could do is just create a completely different separate department for them. Okay, and it would be happening. So that's maybe how I would handle it. So you said furniture, that would be an example of facilities. So you need a new light bulb, or you need a new couch, or you need furniture moved, or you need your cube moved to a different floor. That would be handled by facilities. And then we also have an idea of HR. Let's say there's an HR incident. Okay, an HR request, an HR complaint, something like that could be handled by a system like this, just by adding in new departments. Okay, so hopefully that would take care of that. I do thank you for sharing that. All right. Okay, so Rodrigo is saying Figma is free. So Gerald says, thanks. Are you free or paid with Figma? So, okay. So I guess there is a paid version of Figma. And Rogerio said he's using the free version. Okay. Okay, what is cost center? Okay, so almost every place I've worked that's a medium to large size business, their departments will have a cost center number. Okay. So whenever you're filling out an expense report, a lot of times they ask for the cost center. And it could be your department. The whole department shares one number. Or let's say within IT, you have a networking group and you have desktop support, and then you've got all the application, all the software developers over here. Those could be broken down into different cost center numbers. Also, so for expense reports, think about this. So it has to do with money a lot of times. So let's say a group uses a lot of printer paper. Let's say the programmers like to print out all of their code. They go through a lot of stuff, and so it can be better managed by management. They're like, whoa, why are we going through so many reams of paper and toner for our printers here, and it's always on this floor over here, and so there could be a cost center number assigned to just a group, even within a department, and say, okay, well, we now need to create a budget for this group of people or this department or this cost center. So, yeah. So sometimes it's used as a department. Sometimes it's even more granular than that. So thanks for that question. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is work on our, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this document up here so I can see it while I'm working. Okay. So we need to have request assignments. And I'm going to try to space things out a little bit here. I'm going to add a new table and let's see, request assignments. I like to make IDs uppercase, add a column of title, and that's going to be varchar or a string. Okay, so we have that. Now I'm going to move this over here. Now this is going to tie into users because it's going to be assigned to a user, and it's going to be assigned to a request. So I'm going to just go ahead and put in here a request ID. And I might want to pull in, let's say if we're looking at this table, we need to create a gallery for this table. We might want to put in here request subject. So we don't have any delegation problems while we're trying to do some type of reporting or some type of a dashboard. Okay, so I'll throw that in there. And likewise, we're going to have a signed to ID. Okay, that's going to go to users. And we'll see assigned to name. We'll just pull in the title. Okay, so let's set up these. Move these around a little better here. I like everything to be nice and neat, but sometimes it's not possible. All right, so we've got request. All right, so I'm going to click on this. I'm going to click on the little dot, request ID. It's coming directly out from that particular column. I'm going to pull it over here to ID, okay? And how I'm setting things up, I think it's always going to be many to one, how I set up my relationships there, okay? Okay, assign to ID. I'm going to click on this dot. I'm going to pull it down to that ID, make that many to one. Because I always, whenever I create my relationships, I'm always dragging from the many side to the one. So you got relationships. Sometimes you have a one-to-one. It's actually sort of rare. And a lot of times a one-to-one relationship, it should probably just be in the same table. Not always. And I go into that in some of my previous videos. And then, so in this case, you have one user, let's say a technician that works on a lot of tickets. Well, they're going to have many assignments to many tickets. Okay. So in a case, it's almost like a many to many relationship between users and requests. And you'll never have a many to many relationship between two tables because it's almost like a logical or a conceptual type of relationship. A many to many relationship. So for example, we have users that can be assigned to many requests, and then many requests can be assigned to many users. Okay. So you got a many to many relationship. And what essentially that is going to be, there's going to need to be a mapping table in the middle to facilitate that many to many relationship. So this request assignments is going to be that mapping table between the two. So what you're going to have is a one to many relationship with the mapping table, and then a one to many relationship on the other side of the mapping table, creating that many to many relationship. Okay. All right. So now if you guys get a little fuzzy on these relationships and building out these tables, please let me know. Perhaps I need to spend a whole session on just, okay, let's just talk about database design. Let's talk about relationships. Let's talk about database normalization, which is actually really important. And normalization are rules as you're building out your database tables. Like, you shouldn't duplicate your data as much as you can. Working with PowerApps, working with Sharepoint, sometimes you duplicate a little bit of that data because, as you can see here, the subject request. Well, the subject request is over here. Well, I don't want to have to do lookups inside my galleries. But if you're working with something like SQL Server and traditional software development, you would create a query that's got joins in it and just pull in all this data as one record set. And you can't do that within PowerApps. Now, if you're using SQL Server, you could create a view. A lot of times at work, I'll create a view that's got all my joins. I have a really complex query in there. And then I'll bring in that view from SQL Server as a data source, almost, and PowerApps just thinks it's another table, another data source. So that's sort of way how you can get around that if you really want to. Okay, so this is the mapping table. We have the relationship here. What are the things that we need to put in here for the assignments? Okay, so we're going to know when it was assigned to by the created. So on this assignment, there is this handing off of the assignment. Okay, so the ticket comes in, the service desk is answering a phone, they're looking at an email, they're looking at an item that was just brought into the system, and they need to assign, more than likely, I mean, they could try to figure out the problem. Oh, you need a password reset. Have you tried doing Control Delete, hit reset password? Have you tried that? No. Okay, go ahead and do that. And if like there's something weird going on, perhaps their password needs to be reset, which typically is handled perhaps by somebody on the networking team. So that ticket would be automatically assigned, not over to desktop support because they don't handle that. The networking team does, and they might put in that ticket. Okay, assigning to the networking team. Okay, so this is an interesting type of deal there. They can be just assigning it to the team and not an individual. Okay, see this type of stuff comes up as you're building out this Erd diagram. Okay, that perhaps the user's not even going to bring up. You need to think through these things. Okay, so something else that we should do is we should have, let's say it's just an assignment, a department assignment. Okay, so let's do that. Let's add in here a new column, and we'll say department assignment. Let's say department ID. Okay. And we could grab that by looking at who is assigned to and looking at their department. But we want that to be there so we could perhaps do a report and find out, maybe have a report on how busy each of the departments are. Ever think about that? Yeah. So typically reports are thought of after the application is sort of done and being used. That's not the best way. You want to think about reporting to begin with. But so you make sure you got all the data and you're capturing all kinds of things that you would want in that report. Okay. All right. So we have a department, and we'll say, I might want to put in here a field. Let's say we're not assigning it to a user. Okay. We could, like if it's assigned to a specific technician, we could always have a department in there. Like say networking person. Well, we know Fred over in networking is going to handle password resets, but sometimes we may not know. Maybe Fred is out for the day and we just need to throw it over there to that group, and somebody over in that group needs to handle it. So we might have assignment type. Okay. And that could be a completely separate new table. Assignment types. Okay, so we'll have an ID, have a title. By the time we're done with this application, we're going to have a huge diagram, I have a feeling, because there's all kinds of things that come up. Okay, so data is king. That mapping table is also called a bridge table. Okay, I tend to stay away from those. Okay, very good. So, okay, mapping table, bridge table. Okay, so I'd be curious. Maybe not a discussion for this live stream, but maybe one-on-one. Data is king. How do you handle many-to-many relationships? So if you don't have those many-to-many relationships, how there's got to be some way you handle it. And what I see a lot of times is people just put everything in one table. They're just grouping tables together, and it just causes problems. So it's good that you get this design right. But you might have some way that you deal with it in Access that, that I don't know about. So I don't want to assume however you do it is wrong. I'm just saying, I'm curious how it is that you do handle something that you would normally use a mapping table or a bridge table, as you brought up there. How would you handle that? Okay, so we got assignment types, and this can be as simple as just saying, okay, let's go over here. And perhaps that's just a little table with 2 items in there, okay, that has person or a department. Perhaps there's another one, which is I don't know who this goes to, maybe an unknown. And if a ticket is assigned to an unknown type, perhaps it goes out to the whole department, sends out an email like, does anybody know who supports this app? Let's say there's an app out there called uh, Power PowerApps tutorial ticketing system, and it's a PowerApp app, and nobody knows who wrote the PowerApp. How about that? It's an unknown, and email goes. I'm like, oh, I think Darren did that a year ago. That ticket needs to go to him, or that ticket was done by Darren and he's no longer here. So we need somebody to learn PowerApps to maintain and support that app. Okay, so there could be an unknown or something. Okay, very good. Now, watching the chat for any more ideas here. What else do we need to have in there? When assigned, so we've got to create it and created by. Okay, something else that is very essential here is sort of like what we have for this request notes. We'll have in there notes. Okay, and we'll make that just like we did up here, this in varchar. Okay, we'll add that in there. We'll have notes. What else could we have in there? So let's say a ticket gets assigned to me. They thought it was my Power App, but really it's a database problem. It's an issue with the SQL server being down, or it's a problem with SharePoint. Well, you know what? There's Susie over networking that is the SharePoint person that handles everything SharePoint. So the problem is with my Power App, it's Susie's SharePoint issue. So I'm gonna shoot it over here. I'm gonna reassign it to Susie, and I'm gonna say, hey, this is SharePoint. It doesn't look like SharePoint's up, so might want to look into that. So you can do that and put some notes in there as you're assigning it to them. And also, what I think is interesting about ticketing systems, it's almost like a game of hot potato. So a ticket comes in like, that's hot. I don't want it. Here, you tab it. Everybody wants to get rid of it. And I would think that's one of the reasons that people hate IT is that, if a ticket, if people aren't trained right, they're like, so a ticket comes in and people are trying to I've had that within IT. I'm like, put in a ticket to have somebody else, a coworker in IT, in my department, to do something for me. Like, hey, I need a service account being created for my application, or hey, I need a Citrix VM virtual machine created for me. I'm going to create this ticket. And they're like, they close the ticket right away. Like, hey, you didn't even talk to me, So something else that we probably need to do in the system is have some type of survey system. So whenever the customer is emailed, hey, your ticket was closed, your ticket's now resolved and complete, and then the user tries it, like, no, the problem's still there, So then after that, they can send out a little survey. It's like, hey, how did your ticket go? How, answer some questions, and then management can look at like a report, like, oh, these people are getting 1 out of 5 stars. Something, we need to address that. So that's just an idea for later on. All right, so we have notes. Anything else? Absolutely, Liliana. Feedback from the user. That's exactly where I was going with that. Feedback from the user. We need to get their feedback. And we'll also, what we should also do in here is have a way for the user to say, hey, what's going on with this ticket? I filled it out a month ago. Like, what is going on? And then if somebody escalate, like say the customer escalates it, like, hey, WTF, what's going on? They could do that. And then whoever it's assigned to, their manager could be emailed. Like, hey, your technician in here is not doing their job, perhaps. Absolutely. Okay. So if request requires an approval, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Think about this. We have an assignment type. Could we work that into an assignment type? So assignment type was like, is it a user, is it a department? We could say, I don't want to mess with that and muddy that. Okay, let's create a new column here, and we'll call it needs approval. Okay, and we'll make that a Boolean, yes, no, true, false type of thing here. Or in SQL Server, it would be called bit. So all this thing is built on the types that you see, the int, the varchar, and bit, like this one that we just created. These are all SQL Server types. So if you use this draw SQL tool, you're gonna have three choices. You have my SQL. There's another open source data relational database system that's can handle it's more enterprise level. It's called Postgres, and I've always heard it pronounced that way. I don't know if it doesn't look like. So if I do a search for Postgres SQL, let me see what so it's Postgre SQL. The people I worked with, they called it Postgres. I would love to hear from any of you guys if you're like, no, it's not pronounced that way. It's pronounced this way. Okay, so that's the other tool, or SQL Server. So because I know SQL Server, I'm a Microsoft guy, I pick SQL Server. Unfortunately, what would be cool is this draw SQL tool had brought in all the Sharepoint types, right? Yeah. This is great feedback, Liliana. Awesome. I love this. Okay, so needs approval. And not only that, but let's say a supervisor gets a ticket. Hey, you need to approve. This guy's asking for a brand new laptop. Do you approve this? And they could say, yes, I approve it, but we also need approval from the cost center manager. Or I need approval from the user that filled out, the customer that filled out the ticket. I need approval from their manager. Okay. So we could also, so that would be a separate assignment. And I'm also thinking like this needs approval. Should we have a needs approval, or should this column be moved over here to requests? That's a good question, huh? I don't think so. I don't think I will, because the approval is based on who it's being assigned to. Okay, so it could come in, hey, I need a new laptop. So this thing comes in, it's like, okay, well, there's a person in IT that handles any requests for new laptops. I'm going to assign it to that person. Okay, so there it goes. And perhaps it's desktop support because it involves physical hardware that the users will use. So desktop support handles that. So maybe it goes to the supervisor over there, and he looks at it. It's like, okay, it needs approval. And the service desk people, they set this to be true with a checkbox. Yes, this is an approval. This ticket is going to need approval, so we're going to assign that over, and he approves it. Or maybe he's already talked to the manager of that customer, and they're like, yeah, our cost center or our department is going to pay for that laptop. Okay, so he already knows he's going to approve it and just go with it. And then he'll assign it to another technician that's going to go on a website and order that laptop for that customer. And then perhaps that person, after it comes in, they'll assign it to another technician that will walk out to that person's location and assign it. So not every step within a ticket will require an approval. However, we might run a report at some point. It's like, how many tickets come in are required an approval? So we might put a field on here that is set to true if any of the steps, if any of the assignments needed an approval. So we sort of manage it separately, but it would be here on this if we needed to do a report on that table. So I'm going to go over here and add that. Okay, so requests are down here. Require approval. So we'll set that there as well. Now, if you study relational database system with the normalization rules, which are important. So perhaps I'll have a whole live session on database normalization. You don't like to duplicate data. Again, we're doing things in a certain way within PowerApps, within SharePoint, that we're sort of bending the normalization rules just enough so we can get our application written and so it runs efficiently. Otherwise, I would say absolutely follow all the normalization rules as much as you can. Okay. I'm going to leave that as a bit field as well. Okay. So I see another comment here, Liliana. In my school, we have an initial approval depending on the area of section, primary, secondary, preschool, admin. Okay, very cool. I've also worked at a school as well. So yeah, that's interesting. And you know what? I was brought in. It was it's actually why I moved down here to Florida. There was a church that needed a family member was a pastor of a church, and he needed somebody to run their IT department. Needed that person to run the media department. They needed a person to do their website, their databases, manage their email server, and everything. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to be um, the jack of all trades that you guys need me for technical stuff, you know. And I also taught high school seniors to prepare them for the IT world. So I taught them how to crimp cable and how to do some basic HTML stuff, a little bit of coding and a little bit of scripting, and did all kinds of cool stuff. So that was a very interesting role. And so I mentioned that because you know what I did? There was a one of the executive pastor brought me to the side like, Darren, you're gonna want to hurt yourself. He used other words, but you're gonna want to hurt yourself if you don't get some type of a ticketing system in place, because we didn't have any software or anything. So what I did was I created a paper form and I said, okay, who are you? What's today's date? What do you need? What do you want? What do you need fixed? And I created a ticket. So I've lived and breathed this stuff. So that's why this application is so great for me to go through. This is a little bit of a nostalgia and it brings up a lot of memories. But okay, so an initial approval depending. So let's say a preschool teacher has a problem before it goes to the IT department. Maybe it goes to the director of the preschool. Okay. Okay. So in that case, so far, what we're building here is gonna take account for that because the person taking in the ticket will know. So there needs to be somebody to sort of man this thing, okay? And it can scale for a big organization or something really small. And that person taking in the tickets will know, okay, well, this needs to go to approval to the preschool director first, and then if they approve it, it's going to come back to me. Okay. Very good. And whenever these things get assigned, as things change, at each spot, we could have all these people that were involved with this ticket being notified if possible. Okay. And in fact, on this assignment, whoever it's being assigned to, we can say, this is actually a really cool feature, guys. Check this out. Not only should the user, the customer, be notified at every step of the way of what's going on, perhaps, um, we could say, keep notified. Okay. So whoever is assigned to this, we want to keep notified. And we'll make this a bit field. Okay. So as it's being assigned to them, they can, maybe it's on by default, and the person, then when it comes to them, they're like, yeah, keep me in the loop on everything that happens after this, or they're like, I don't want to hear about this ticket ever again. You know what I mean? So let's say Liliana. So for your example, that let's say the director of preschool or primary, secondary of that department within that school, it gets initially assigned to them. And they're like, you know what? Keep me notified if everything goes on with this ticket because these are my people here. I want to make sure they're taken care of. Okay. So we'll add that field. All right. This is great thinking through all of these things. Okay. So I'm sort of hoping to build in everything that would be a good common denominator for all the systems that you guys are trying to build while building this out with me. So you can see if I put in all these features, you can see how I build out all these features. Okay, so you're not sort of wondering, well, how am I doing this deviates, or I'm doing something specific here. How would I build this onto what Darren was doing in his? Okay, so all right, so request comments. Okay, these are request assignments. I'm feeling pretty good about this so far. And, if we need to add on to it later, we can. That's no problem. Okay. So we have staff that's already created. We have, okay. So I've made it to the end of my entity list here. Okay. Now we can go into the screens. Now we can go into the designing, perhaps what you guys are looking for. Okay. We're at the hour and 10-minute mark. And perhaps you know, I'm feeling pretty good about this. Do you guys have any more ideas of any more entities? So now is the time to throw that in there. If not, I say, hey, let's open up Balsamic. Let's start designing out these screens. Okay. All right. So we got this. I'm gonna open up Balsamic. And let me show you what we have so far, because we did this last Saturday. I'm like, this is a PowerApps. Um, this is a PowerApps application that we're building. We need to do something in PowerApps. Okay. Now I see a bunch of comments coming in. Okay. I want to do something in Power. So what we did here, if we run this, we at least have this. So someone can come in here and type in a request and it will be there. Okay. So we've got like a good 3 items. So we've started on this. Okay. And all right. So let me go to this here. Gerald, please, can you post updated ERD in Facebook? Absolutely. You know what I can do? I'm going to open up that group right now. I'm going to save this. Now, it doesn't seem like it does an automatic save. I can share this diagram link. Look at that. Anyone with this link will get view only access. So now I'm going to paste that link right now into the group. As it changes, months from now, if we add a bunch of stuff in it, you can just click on this link and it'll always have the new updates. Okay. So I'm like, link, if I can type it right here, link to the draw well diagram. That is posted out there right now. Okay. Something else I might do. I wonder. Get out of that. Okay. I saw something to Twitter. So some of you have found out about this from Twitter. Yeah, I'll just tweet that. Cool. Very good. All right. So we have that. What else? Okay. So I showed you the screen here. Okay. This is what we have. So we have a long ways to go. Okay. So our first screen, what I want to do initially, it's like the heart and the core of our application, which is the customer has come to the application, they want to fill out a ticket. Okay. Now, something to think about. We could break down this project, okay, this solution into actually 3 different applications. So tell me what you guys think about this. We have one application for customers to use. Okay. So they use the app, they can go in there and they can fill out a request. Okay. So like what we're doing here. They can fill out the request and then it's submitted. Okay. Then they can go in there and they can add more details like, oh, hey, I rebooted my computer and it fixed all the problems. Okay. And you can do like a request to close. Okay. And what else can the users do? Well, now we're getting into, and so I said 3 different apps. So one for the IT department or whatever department is actually managing the ticket, and then you can have a third app which is for the technicians. Let's say they're trying to they went out to a site, a different building or different location. Maybe they flew out across the country, and they're trying to solve this problem, fill the ticket. They need probably a phone app to go in and enter details or to check in like, hey, I'm at the location, I can't find the user, just updating the ticket, whatever. So I'm envisioning perhaps maybe this could be 3 different applications. Okay. Could be. Okay. All right. So what else do we have? Facebook user. uh, Let me see who the Facebook user is here. Yeah. So this is Doug. All right, Doug. If the customer selects a specific category in the ticket, can we automatically go to the predefined approval for that category? You might have to. I'm going to reread this, but give me more details if you don't mind. If the customer selects a specific category, okay. So let's go to our ERD diagram. Let's look at category here. A category. We have statuses, priorities, category in the ticket. Can we automatically go to predefined approvals for that category? Okay. This is bringing up a topic. I've seen this come up multiple now. A lot of times I'm like, oh, that this is a department. You could think of a category for a ticket to be assigned to a ticket. But let's say even in IT, you could think of categories like, oh, this is a let's say all password resets, that type of thing would be a category. Even I mean, it would be the same department as some other IT related. You could create categories that would almost be like categories even within a department. If you didn't want to separate departments into separate cost centers, I say we should make this as flexible as possible. Okay. Now, Doug, let me know if this is or is not what you're talking about. Okay. But what I'm thinking now, since I'm thinking through this, I'm talking through this with you guys, is we should have request category categories. Okay. Now, some people like to, with their table names, their SharePoint list names, either be all singular, like user for users, it would be just user. Okay. I like to keep them plural. It just sounds right. Like I have a users table, or I have a requests table. But you just need to design on a convention. Either you're going to make it all singular or plural and stick to that convention. You don't want them to be a hodgepodge, some singular, some plural, that type of thing. And Dataverse does that for you automatically, by the way. It will create a singular version and a plural. If you create a singular version, it'll also create a plural version for you as well. Okay, so request categories. So we will have, yes, an ID. Okay, let's add in a title. So this would be very easy for us to do here. Title, and we'll say varchar. Okay, we've got that. And we should probably have a sort order like these other two things over here. Okay. Sort order. I did spell that right. Okay. And then over here for requests, we'll add in here a category ID. Okay. Now, click on category ID and drag it over to ID. And how I drag it over, it's always a many to one. Okay. Okay. So, um, now, Doug, I don't know if you're talking about when you say category, if you're talking about departments or whatever, but let's think about it in both ways. The customer selects a specific category and the ticket can be automatically predefined. Yes. Yes, we could. And what I'm thinking is we have assignment type. It could be either an assignment to a user, a department. An assignment type could be perhaps an approval type of an assignment. Like this person was assigned to it, it needs to be approved. And then this bit would be approved. And then what we could do is we could set up a category in here for a ticket. It just needs an approval. That's it. Okay. Um, we could set up a category for that. It's just an approval, only approval needed. Okay. Or it could be like, okay, so this is a password reset type of a ticket. Okay, so we can set up all these little categories and we can create a business rule, some logic in there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to our requirements document over here. Up at the top, we have business rules, processes. Okay, so if category category is only requires approval, okay, then assign to specific person. Something else you need to think about while we do this is any user, any manager, supervisor, staff, technician, customer could be out of the office. They could be sick. They could be out on vacation. They could be out for a month, So assigning it to specific people could be problematic. Okay. But as long as notifications are going out in a certain way, it could be reassigned and reworked. So thank you for that input. Absolutely. All right. So data is king. The user can be notified using a flow in Power Automate when the status changes in the SharePoint list. That is true. Absolutely. And in fact, a lot of approvals and stuff happen. There's a lot of things you can do in Power Automate that could take care of a lot of this stuff. However, in fact, you can do a lot of the business rules inside of Power Automate. Um, if the ticket always changes inside the Power Apps, I tend not to. I only use Power Automate if it's absolutely necessary. Okay, so let's say the status changes somehow outside the application, then yeah, you're going to need a Power Automate flow. But we'll talk about that later as we get into those situations. But I like to put as much stuff inside the application because it's really simple. It's really simple to do it inside of a Power Apps, and it's not to say it's not simple in Power Automate. I just don't like if it can be done in Power, just keep it all in one place as much as possible, rather than just having things all over the place. Because you might not think, if you're maintaining, maybe you wrote this app 3 years ago and you're going back to it. It's like, wow, so this email goes out and I just clicked on this button and there's no code in here that sends out an email. There might be a Power Automate flow that is set up on the SharePoint list. So you may not even see a call to a flow within Power Apps. So it's like, it just sort of feels more spaghetti type of like, there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on in here. And you're trying to wrap your mind around what's causing something. You're trying to debug or troubleshoot something. So I don't know. It's a developer in me. I like to keep things as consolidated as possible, but that's absolutely a great point that you bring up, though. Okay, but yeah, Power Automate can be used for a lot of this stuff. Okay, this is great. Well, you know what, Nicole, you're great. Yes, you can do a list with type of request, and next to it can be the approval to each one. Okay, so what Liliana is saying, you can do a list with the type of request. So type of request. Okay. So yeah, so as we're thinking through this, okay, we could have a column here for, a request category. I don't want it necessarily to always be about who's assigned. I'd like to. So this is something else that you want to sort of nail down in your design. You don't want to let this get away from you too much. You don't want to get too complex. You want to consolidate things into single tables as much as you can. So if a ticket has been the assignment has changed, it's always going to be in that table. This a request assignment. Okay, and you know what? Whoever's brought over to is going to be users. And you know what? Based on the assignment type, and needs approval, you're always going to know it's going to be the approval. So based on that, we're going to be able to sort of know, sort of track that down. Okay, so I'm gonna say just based on that, we're gonna stick with this design. If you guys bring in anything that I don't think this design can handle, we will add to this design. Okay, all right, going on to the next one here. Better than expected. I'm sorry. That's interesting. Better than respect. Okay. Are you guys talking about delegation? Like if responsible, like, okay. So talking about Power Apps, you bring up the word delegation, people's brains explode because if you work with Power Apps for any length of time, you always want to delegate the queries and stuff. So when I see delegation, we'll talk about Power Apps. I'm like, okay, we're talking about that, but maybe not. We're delegating. We're assigning the ticket to separate. So another word for that could be delegate. You're assigning or delegating it to people. You're talking about delegation. So yeah, like if responsible is not able to do it for some reason and it gives a test, absolutely. Absolutely. So sorry, it took me a few seconds to think through that. But absolutely, that's the heart of this application. A request comes in and a whole department is working on it. It gets moved over here, it gets moved over there, and this happens and this happens. Absolutely. All right. All right. So the very heart of the application, I think for right now, I'm going to stick with building one Power Apps application. Okay. And perhaps later down the road, we're like, okay, how do we break this out and separate this out? Okay. So the application the customer is going to use for right now is going to be this application, which will be the same application that the people working with the ticket are going to use as well. So we're going to need to develop and design this screen to follow our to handle all this stuff. Okay. So a user comes in and we need to design the screen. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip out a lot of these things here. Okay. I'm going to keep some of them in here. I almost like to start from a clean slate on developing screens because it just helps me sort of brainstorm and work better. I need to get rid of that there. Okay, so I'm going to make a copy of this. Let's see, duplicate. Okay, so we got a copy of that. So I'm going to call this wireframe, if I can rename it somehow. Rename. I'll say new. Okay. Also, I'll duplicate this one and I'll say blank. And if you notice, guys, if you work with me on Power Apps, I do the same thing with Power Apps. So here within my application template, my Jumpstart kit, is I have different screens for different things. I have a blank screen, Control 0 will size that perfectly. We have a tab screen, so I can make copies of these things. So I could start from scratch if I wanted to, let's say a blank screen, or I could start with some stuff that already has stuff in it. Okay. So I've got a blank, I have a new, and this is just an example of something I did for a previous project. Okay, so I'm going to start from this one here. I'm going to duplicate, and let's rename this to be customer creates ticket. Okay, and that might be the name of our screen. Okay, so what I'm going to have here, this is just going to be our menu. Okay, so right now we have a text box at the top, and so you have a subject line and a description. And what's cool about calling it that is some people like to create a ticket by sending an email to an email box, the service desk email, and perhaps the subject line will be brought in, and the description, I'm sorry, the body of the email will be brought in there. Okay, so double click on that. I'm going to say subject line. I'll put it in parentheses. This will be the short description. Okay, so sometimes I like to do something like this. Okay. Okay. Move this around, subject line. And the initial value of this text box, you know what? I'll say a short description of my request. Okay. So now I don't have to say short description here. All right. And I know that we're going to use a drop down list eventually. Okay. All right. Do you guys see this thing here at the top? I can drop in things up here. So the text area, boom. A very detailed description of the request. Okay. Okay, I think I'm gonna move that around. And I'm gonna click on that label. I'll copy and paste. Almost feels like working in Power Apps where you're copying and pasting stuff around. Okay. Now we might want this to be, what's the width here? Almost 200. Let's make that 300. This one 300. It does feel like Power Apps, doesn't it? All right. So those are the two biggest things that need to be defined right up front. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my design here. I want to bring it up here to the screen so I can look at it. Now you guys can do the same thing, right? Because I shared the link with you guys. You know, for those of you guys who maybe haven't had the chance to fill in the student intake forms to get that link, I'm going to share it here. Diagram link. I'm going to share it here for you guys, okay? So you guys can get to it as well. All right. And I'm going to bring up Balsamic here. Okay. So if you guys have multiple screens, you guys can be looking at this. Okay. So we have requests. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say customer, what do we call it? Like, yeah. And I might also put a screen in there. That's actually a recommended practice, a best practice from Microsoft, is you put spaces in your screen names and they have the word screen in there. Okay, so screen readers can read those for people who perhaps are blind or that are visually impaired. Okay, so we got subject line, we have body. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to I'm going to say in here requester. Okay. Now this might be themselves. Okay. Might be. So in here, I'm going to say do done. Now, how is it that we want to select people? Is it going to be a combo box like this? Or is there some other way that we want to have like as a people picker? Okay. I'm thinking a combo box might be the best. Okay. Doesn't have to be, but it probably would be the best. Now, what we're going to do is default this to the current user. So if I'm in here and I'm filling out a ticket, it's going to throw my name in there, and then I can go in here and change it. Why would we want that to be changed? Because let's say I'm a service desk technician and I'm using the app to create a new ticket. Well, somebody's calling me on the phone. Okay. So I'm going to replace my name with the person who's actually requesting. So it needs to be editable. Okay. All right. So we've got that request person affected. Okay. Now this would be defaulted to, this will be the exact, almost exact same thing here. Person affected. Probably 9 out of 10 times, the person affected is the same person as the person requesting. Now there's a few, I'm going to say Smith, Mary, okay? System needs to be flexible enough to handle it if it's different. Most of the time it's going to be the same, okay? So let me give you an example of when it's not. You've got an executive or a manager who has an admin assistant. The admin assistant is going to be the requester. The person affected would be the person that say, "Hey, fill out a ticket for me." Okay. Another thing is let's say, and so you think to yourself, well, that's not going to happen very often. Our organization only has one executive or one main guy who may not be filling out there. And by the way, guys, I'm going to tell you from experience, people don't like to fill out tickets. They want you to do stuff without them having to go through tickets. And if you go through this yourself, you're going to come up with the opinion that people it just sort of people you get the sense that people want to feel important enough not to have to fill out a ticket. So managers, if they see you in the hallway and they know you work in IT, like, hey, the printer's not working. Go take a look at that. And like, well, if you filed a ticket, and if they're an executive or manager or whatever, sometimes you're just like, you know what, this guy's my boss, or this guy is the best friend of my boss. It's just like, and it can really bother you. It can really bother you a lot. Don't let it. If you need your job, um, is you might be the requester because they don't want to manage the ticket. They're like, just told you to create a ticket for them. I mean, I might be the person filling this out, but I might put them as the requester. Okay, let's think of another situation. Let's say somebody is a mechanic. They don't have access to a company computer. They may not have their own Office 365 type of a thing. Um, so you might go in here and say, well, I'm the person requesting it on behalf of somebody else. They don't have a computer or whatever. So you're going to do that. Okay. All right. So what we'll do is we'll have combo boxes set up that will tie in with Office 365 users connector. Okay. And we'll use that as a data source. And then what we'll do is after they select somebody, let's go back to our data here. We're going to grab certain things. We're going to check to see if the user's in here. If they're not, we're going to put in a bunch of information there. Okay. So we'll know their name and their email address from uh, Office 365 users connector. Okay. And we'll also, users can be able to go in here and fill out this information for themselves. Okay. Okay. Um, so we've got that. We've got affected user. What else? Associated department. Okay. So we will use a drop down list here. So I'm going to select this. We're going to select these two things. I'm using control to select more than one item. I'm going to control paste. Okay. And now I'm going to put over here right beside the subject line, I'm going to say department responsible. Okay. Now we could have information technology. Now, let me show you guys a trick, a design thing that I do is I think about a drop down. And some cases, a drop down isn't the best or combo box isn't the best. You've got a list, perhaps it's a short list. And I'd almost like to show you guys an example. Let me see if I could pull up an example here. Because it's a really cool example. And it's going to take a moment for, sometimes PowerApps takes a while to load up. So I'm going to start it loading up over here. Um, let's see here. I'll go over to, and I'll probably need to blur or blank some of this out. Yeah. So I have got an application and it's a request type of application. And instead of having a drop down, what I use is a gallery. And I had a gallery in there, and each type has got like a little picture. And also another example that probably wouldn't be that big of a deal to show is my work order system. If you guys look at my work order system for I might just try to bring it up on the video here. So I click on playlists. Let's go into this work order system for a garage. Okay. Now I'll pause that. It is a edit drop down list value. So if you do a search for Darren Neese edit drop down list values, you'll find this. Okay. So here is something that you could have made a drop down or a combo box associated image. But let's say that this could be the department responsible for our tickets. Okay. Let's say each department has got an associated image along with their department. Okay. So you can show an image and you can show the name of it. Okay. And I do have an example. I think it looks really nice. Let me see here. I try to include as much of the design as I can without giving too much information away. Bring up paint real quick. Oh, okay. Very good. All right. So this is a screen from one of my designs here. Another secret, guys, I'm giving away all my design secrets here in this video because the video is about design, right? Is I'll go and make sure I've got a good few list of really cool looking icons. I'll go on Fiverr and pay $5 to $10 per icon. If you're building out an application and you're charging a good $5,000 to build out a Power App, um, and I talk about that in my freelancing video. If you take a look at, I think it's my second live stream. If you go to that list there, I talk about this stuff. You charge $5,000 for this. Well, you know what? Hire somebody on Fiverr to build out a bunch of icons for your app. It makes it look so much more professional. I don't build these icons myself. I'm not a designer. Or marry a beautiful woman who's a graphic designer. I've actually done that. That's Nicole that you see pop up on the chat here. All right. So anyway, do one of those two things. All right, so this could have been a drop down here, environment type. So this request came in. So at this particular place, they wanted these. So they have all these PowerApps environments. So a lot of times you deal with PowerApps, you might have just one default environment, but you might have you might have like a dev environment, you have a QA environment, you've got production, and so at this place they wanted people to request their if they have, I mean, there's a lot of environments, they've got like dozens and dozens of environments. So we wanted to have a process in place, like, okay, request to buy, the purpose of the request, date needed by. This is almost like a ticketing app, right? But instead of a drop down for this, I wanted this to be visually engaging to the user. Okay, so not only do I have this list, they can see all the items. They don't have to click on a little chevron and then see all the items. You know, they can say, oh, there's hundreds of things in here. You know, or they can just see it plainly. They don't have to. You know, with a drop down or combo box, you're hiding things. You know, I mean, you're saving space, yes, but in this case, you might want to show all of them, and you might have like a little icon or some type of logo for each of the departments. Yeah. Now in this case, it's the same one. I use like a Docker type of icon. And you guys know where I got this icon from? I got it from Matthew Devaney's website, the 2000 free icons. So I really like that. So it's an SVG file. Okay, so we have that. So that's an idea. And if you clicked on a different environment, the whole description for that item pops up over here like that. And I got that from the official Microsoft documentation on the different types of environments that you can create on the Power Platform. Okay, so hope you guys like that. All right, I'm going to get out of that. And I'm just going to click back twice here. All right, so we'll get out of that. All right, let's bring up Balsamic here. Okay, so going back to this. So what I sort of want to do, that's more of a menu. We can have like a list here. And we'll say information technology. You can have human resources, comma, then we could add in here facilities. Okay. So instead of doing that, we could have this. And then you decide like how many will this really have? It could just be like 3, you know, something like that. Or I like to align things up nice and neat. So perhaps we don't need tons and tons and tons of space. I like to align things up so everything looks like it belongs. Okay. All right, we're gonna put that in here like that. Okay. That's, for me, it makes a really good design. If everything you align things up in a certain way and a user comes to the screen like, oh wow, this is a cool looking screen. Maybe you've got a cool looking image. Okay, so let me drop in where are the little photos here. Buttons, containers, forms, icons. Okay, I was thinking more of like an image. Okay, let me show you another example of one of my designs that we could implement here. Okay, I'm going to take you to my videos, and then I'm going to do sort by most popular. And we're going to look at this guy right here. Make sure it's muted. So I go through the design process of how I created all this. Okay, now look at these screens. I went to, I use a website called Deposit Photos. And you don't have to use that one. There's all kinds of websites out there that allow you to use stock photography. Okay, some of them are free. Okay, and this was an application that tracked vehicle inspections, and it was like a checklist type of application. So look, I've got a picture of a customer here, and I have somebody that's talking to the customer with a clipboard. Okay, like they're going to be doing an inspection for them. Okay, so as I go through, look, I've got more not clip art. I'm thinking stock photos. Okay, so yeah, we got a photo down here, a bunch of cars. So this is a car management screen. Okay, so it really gives your like the screen right here. Before this inspection started, I've got this big picture of a technician about to start an inspection. You know, and people really like that. So that's another big tip for your application design is that you include stock photography or you have icons created, okay, like this right here. Put something visually appealing in there and also make sure everything sort of matches with the colors. Okay. Now you might think, oh, I'm not going to mess with that. Well, the little bit of time that it takes to do that type of stuff makes your design look really good and you come off much more professional. You develop an application and you can charge a lot more money. So I think it's really worth it. Okay. All right. So what I want to do is have a picture. So there's a picture I'm going to copy paste. I just wonder where this came from though. If I said all, it's got to be, oh yeah, there's a scroll bar here. It's a progress bar. There's all kinds of cool stuff we can do. Okay. And there it is. It says webcam, but we can just make this be a picture. Okay. And this might be a picture down here. Let's say if you need to fill up some space, we could do something like this. Let me move this around here. Actually, I think I'm going to delete that. Yeah, just put in a little thing here to take us some space. Okay. Might want to make the save button a little bigger. And okay. All right. So let's look at our design. Where is our got too many screens open. All right. All right. So we have department. What is the field name of that? I want to bring this down, just sort of look at this. Have you guys look at this with me? Well, I know we've got the department here. So boom, associated department. Okay. Affected person department. Okay. So the status. Are we going to put status on the screen? Well, this is essentially an edit or a new creation of this type of record here. I'm going to put this over here just as something we can use later. Put that down there. Okay. Should we have a status on the screen? Well, what is the screen being used for? It's being used for a customer and then entering a new ticket. Do we want the user to set up the status of this ticket like, oh yeah, this is somebody's working on it, it's in progress? Or do I want the customer to say, oh yeah, here's my ticket and by the way it's closed? No, we're not going to include that field on here, but we are going to set it when they click on this little save button. When we put a little patch function on there, what we're going to do is we're going to take all this data, we're going to do a patch, we're going to throw it into the database, and we're going to set a little field. Okay. Status. Okay. And it's going to be the title for that status will be open or new, a new record. And perhaps we'll create these statuses, and one will be new, and then and we should probably really type this up so we don't lose this information because it's valuable information as we work on our application here, our design. Okay, so let's go up to where we talked about all this, and so here. Okay. Okay, what's the status for request? So possible values for request status would be open, or I'm sorry, be new, like a new ticket. Okay, and then that ticket gets assigned to somebody right away, and then that technician, per our service level agreement that's been set by the organization or that department, they need to get back to that customer within 20 minutes or an hour or 24 hours. And then once you reach out to that customer, like, hey, I got your ticket. I've seen it. I've read it. I need to look into it. Let me get back to you. But as long as you contact the customer right away, okay, that technician can go in and say, it's been opened. Okay. And then this new, I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can see this better. Okay. So this new, if that hits more than 1 hour, etc., it might trigger SLA violation. Now, this would be a good example for a Power Automate flow, because if a ticket is created, it's created as new, and then nobody opens up that Power App and nobody ever does anything with it, there's nothing I can do as a Power Apps developer within Power Apps to say, this SLA, there's an SLA violation. Nothing was done with this ticket. Well, we need to create a Power Automate flow that will check up on the tickets. We'll look for any with status of new. It'll check the created and say, if this goes past that hour, it goes past the 2 hour, the 24 hours, whatever. Now we need to have an SLA violation. Okay. Not only that, but we should probably enter that into our design. Okay. So I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, but let's just create a new table here and we'll call it request. Well, I'm going to call it SLA. SLA, service level agreement. That's an acronym. So I make all 3 letters uppercase if it's an acronym. SLA violation. Violations. Okay. So we're going to have an ID. Boom. And there could be multiple SLA violations on the same ticket. Okay. Because, let's say we didn't get back to the user in time, or let's say it took us longer than a month to complete the ticket. Well, that could be another SLA violation. Okay. Okay. So these will be the different violations that could happen. We need that defined. Title. And we'll say description of the SLA violation. Like we could put in there, all tickets, the customer must be contacted within 2 hours of the ticket being created. That would be in here. Maybe in the title and the description, there could be a lot more information, maybe some legal information, all types of stuff, because it could be a more complex type of SLA rule. Okay. All right. So we have that SLA violation. So now this is a many-to-many relationship. Okay, so we've talked about 2 SLA violations. Number 1, the customer needs to be called back or contact within 2 hours. And that could be whatever. And we could also have time span associated with that. And I'm not sure what type of data we'd put in there. It could be hours, it could be days. So time span, we could put in here time span interval. And the type of information what would go in there would be, for now, I'd say in varchar to say either the word day, weeks, months, that type of thing. Okay. And then we would want a mapping table in the middle, and we would call this request SLA violations. Of course, it's going to have an ID. And we'll put your title. But you know what? We need a request ID. We need SLA violation ID. Okay, we're going to move this over here. There's the violation, it goes to there, and the request, that needs to go up to there. Okay, so as you think of these, you guys immediately need to go to your design and enter them, because you'll forget about it. I know I do, unless you have a mind like a steel trap. I forget things all the time. I'm like, I need to go do whatever, and I'll walk into the room like, why am I in here? So maybe I'm just getting old. Maybe you guys don't experience any of that. Okay, so whenever I get the idea, I immediately go to the design and I get that in there, so I don't lose it, because this is really valuable stuff, guys. Okay, so I'm gonna go in. I've got another comment here. Gerald, perhaps a live link to planning a new PowerApps app service desk system document could be shared with members of the Facebook Insiders group. Um, a live link, and I do have that. In fact, let me go down and just make sure that that's true. I shared it last week, I believe. Yeah, maybe I don't. I think maybe I put it in a comment to last week's live stream, but if I don't have an actual link to it, I'm going to hit share. Okay, anyone with the link can view. Okay, and I'm going to paste that in there right now. So it's nice and easily. And maybe I'll create a post that's got all these links. You know, a link to the diagram, a link to this, and a link to that. All right, so I'm going to paste that link in there and say ticketing system requirements. Absolutely. Like I'm expecting you guys to do all this stuff that I'm doing, all these design and everything, because you need to do it. Because at some point you're going to need to create your own system. That's not exactly what I'm doing. It's on a job or whatever, and you will have needed to be familiar with creating all these requirements. Okay, so that is now posted in the Facebook group. Very good. Okay, so what we're talking about is request statuses. So I just want to go over some examples of this because it's important that we do this. As it comes up, we need to go back to our document here and come up with all kinds of things. Okay, so boom, we've created 2 new tables just based on that. You know, it ties into our business logic that we've taught, that somebody brought up last week that I didn't think of, somebody else brought it up. So that's the beauty of this, building the system together. You know, many minds coming together and sort of crowdsourcing the requirements and the document. This is great. All right, so open. What else could be? It could be in progress. Guess what? Sometimes you're waiting on the customer. So you email the customer like, hey, I need to know what the tag number is on your laptop in order for me to help you. And you pretty much say, hey, I'm waiting on the customer. And perhaps they take a few days to get back to you. Well, you know what? Um, that shouldn't be counted negatively towards that technician. Okay. So if you sign a ticket to me and I'm ready to do the job, I'm gonna figure out this issue today for this person, but they haven't given me all the information. So I'm gonna say, hey, I need this information, and it's put in waiting for the customer. And then the customer takes 2 weeks, maybe they fill a ticket right before they go on vacation. They take a month vacation, and then boom, we have a service level agreement that they get, that the all tickets are completed within a month. And now you get an SLA violation. As we talk in the field in the IT department, they say the ticket blew up. That's a bad thing. I mean, directors, executives, people are like, who did this? Who didn't do their job? Oh my goodness. Well, you know, if you're waiting on a customer, that really shouldn't be negatively. Perhaps there's a report based on all these. Here's a listing of all my technicians, and here is the number of days, which is the average number of days it takes for that technician to fill a ticket. Okay. Now, if the technician is waiting for 2 weeks for somebody to come back from vacation, that really shouldn't be, you know. So it's good that we have a little status like this. Okay. And of course, we're going to have a closed status for a ticket. All right. So I do have some comments coming on here. Victor, this balsamic tool is really cool. I like it. It looks a lot like PowerApps. Nice takeaway. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Yeah. Well, I know I was using balsamic here in Florida back in 2009. So, yeah, balsamic came first. PowerApps is sort of new, but okay. So, what else did you say here? Same for SQL drawing tool. Yeah. Where did you put it in with the app as documentation so you don't forget? You know what? That's a good. Thanks, guys. These are really good ideas. Okay, so let me put this in here. Let me get the link, diagram link. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put it maybe down here where I define all the tables. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay. Boom. Right there. Database tables. And there's the link to it. All right. Very good. Now let's go back up to our thanks, Victor, by the way, for those 2 comments. I think it's down here. Yeah. So a ticket will be a new ticket, then it will be open, then it's in progress, waiting on customer, and closed. Are there any more? Let me know. Okay. So point being, this is a very important point as you're creating. So if you're creating a form, if you're using a PowerApps form, you know, you might think, oh, I'm using a form and put all the fields in there. The customer edits it and hits the button, but you don't want them to set the status. Well, you would have to probably what you'd want to do is hide that particular column and then set up as default to be a new ticket. Okay. But since we're doing this here, we would actually put it in the save button. Okay. In the patch statement, actually set the status because we know on this screen only new tickets are created. So we would make sure that it always says new. Okay. But we're not going to bring over a drop down list for that particular column. Okay. Okay. I'm going to bring up this thing in the new window. Let's look at what we don't have here yet. So we have a department assigned. Are we going to assign to a person at this point? I would say no. Now you might think, oh yeah, I know exactly who's going to fill the ticket. The ticket's Ron over in networking. Case in point, a lot of times when people, what they can do is you could have a suggested assign to. I had people, I was a software developer at a state agency, and I had, let's just say, people who they felt like I knew the most about a certain topic, and I did, but they wanted me to handle it. Like, hey, something needs to happen, like a server needs to be rebooted. And I'm like, okay, well, fill out a ticket. And they filled out a ticket. Oh yeah, give this to Darren. And the service has people like, oh, the user said assign it to Darren. I'm like, guys, I don't manage the servers here. This needs to be this ticket needs to be bounced over to the networking team. They handle, although the networking team gave me permissions to reboot servers and to manage servers, because I knew I had that in my background, and I would help them like upgrade SQL servers and web servers and stuff. I didn't want to do that, and not only that, but I shouldn't be rebooting servers. That there's probably a business process in place. You need to let users know, like, hey, this particular server needs to be rebooted. Please log out of your application, save your work, whatever. At the end of the day, we're gonna bounce the server. uh, I don't want to be responsible for all that communication and stuff, you know. But the user thinks I should be the one bouncing the server, and no, I don't want to. So I don't want them to assign a ticket. I don't want a customer assigning a ticket to any one person. But what I could do, okay, is put in here suggested technician. I'll just leave it at suggest technician who might be the who should do the work. Should fill the request. Okay. We could put that in there. And in PowerApps, we've got a hint text. So we can put that in there like that. Okay. And then let the service desk look at that. Okay. And then perhaps a name. Yeah, perhaps they know it's some guy named Darren in IT, but they don't know my last name. So they might, perhaps like a people picker wouldn't be a good idea. Perhaps they just need to type it in. So that might be a good thing here. So the question is, well, we need a place to put that, right? What I would say is that this is a free-form text entry. We can actually append that text to the subject line and actually store it in the body at the very end of the body. What do you guys think of that? Do you guys think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea? If you wanted to, you always need to be thinking about reports when you're thinking about where data goes. Because if I need to create a report based on who's the most suggested person to take care of tickets, you know what I mean? Well, then you wouldn't want to put it in the body. You want to have a separate thing there. Okay. So I don't know, something to consider. Um, It'd be real hard to create a report based on, oh yeah, Darren in IT takes care of this. They don't type a last name. Well, if they type in my exact name and they don't misspell the name, then I could create a report that's got boom all the Darrens that was requested for tickets. But that's not normally the case, and you want it to be flexible enough. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm watching the comments over here, and data is king. The technician should be able to assign the tickets themselves in cases someone is out. Yes, that is true. That is true. Um, hmm, how would we handle that? You know what I would do in that case? This is how I would handle that. I would create a little rectangle. If I can find a rectangle anywhere, let me see if I can. See a text input. That's not really what I want though. And what I'm thinking, guys, is I've got a little rectangle. Let me try this. Okay, yeah, little dark rectangle. And what I'm going to say here is normal users aren't going to see this rectangle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this thing over here. I'm going to say office use, department, office use. Okay. So for example, if I picked as a user, I pick, okay, this is a ticket, it's information technology. In our PowerApps app, we go do a lookup on who the current user is. And if I'm in that information technology, this thing appears. Huh? What do you guys think? Isn't that cool? So we could have this and we could say, or perhaps if we're the service desk for that department, like the intake technician for that particular department that they picked here, this shows up and then I can say assign to. What do you guys think of that? This is all great feedback, guys. This is great information. Thanks. Absolutely. Assign to. And I don't know if I can change how it's a little too dark for me there, but you get the idea. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's what's nice about dealing with balsamic is that a lot of times I don't feel the need to make everything all perfectly and everything. It's like a rough sketch. All right, so assign to what are the things that we can do here? Okay, assign to, boom. Okay, what about priority? Now just remember people are gonna put, oh yeah, this is high priority. And perhaps what we can do here is have something like a everybody's just going to say, oh yeah, this is high priority. And in some cases, if somebody, like say the server's down or something, yeah, that's like an emergency ticket. The server needs to come back, it's affecting multiple users, all that type of stuff. And we put a little data grid down here. Okay, make it three of them, and we'll put a little label on it, and we'll say priority. But we'll tell you, you always, I mean, this is going to sound sort of pessimistic. You always have to assume the lowest common denominator of you have to sort of assume that you're dealing with somebody that hasn't had their coffee yet and they're not very smart. So you come to the assumption when you're dealing with a lot of users is that you need to make this dummy proof. So priority level. and think about somebody not using the system the way that it's intended. Okay. So we've got, what do we have here? We have column names. Okay. And then I want like a name and a description. That's what I'm wanting you to do here. Okay. So for example, I really like, so I want to have a list. I want to say, okay, so this is priority: high, medium, low priority. And we could have 5 different priorities. But when they click on the priority, I want them to see, maybe right beside it says high priority, multiple users affected, um, this is a critical error, a critical problem, or like I can't do anything until this thing is happening. And then low priority is like, hey, just get to it when you can. It's just a minor defect. I want the users to see a little description. What they're selecting, the description of it, a short description should match what they're clicking on. Okay. That's what I want to do there. And all right. So will all of this fit on a PowerApps tablet view? Yes. So this is the tablet view, or other known as the landscape view. Okay. Which is what this is in right now. Okay. So yes, containers. Containers, I haven't used containers a lot. I know containers help with a tab order. So we might actually use that. Now, question is, are you going to use containers? Because you guys are building out your apps. And I always like to do things differently when I'm starting a new project. I like, hey, let's use containers for the first time here and just use it all the way through. And then I'll have some lessons learned. And maybe I'll create a little video of like, hey, the pros and cons of using containers. And there are some things in Power Apps that I'm like, man, people should really stay away from this. For example, data tables. I don't like the data table control, but there are some uses, and you'll see me use it every once in a while, but it's not usually for a screen that the user's ever going to see. Okay. It's just something quick and dirty. I just need to look at the data really quickly. But I say yes. I say let's use container. What I'm going to be doing here, I'm going to start using containers. So yeah, so we'll do that, and yeah, very good. Very good suggestion. Thanks for bringing that up. All right. So I've got name, job title. So I only want 2. Okay. I want to say hi. Very urgent or multiple users affected. See what that looks like. Okay. Let's take off the commas in the end. Okay, so that should get rid of the second one there. And they've got these little sort things. I don't want sort in there. And description. Okay, very good. Name and description. So I'm going to say level. Level and description. It's high, very urgent. Okay. What else? Need resolved. ASAP. Okay. And then down here, we'll have some low. Get to it whenever. Which I doubt very many people will say low. And we need to make sure we have all the commas removed. Okay. Okay, so what do you guys think of that? Now I need to probably size this down a little bit. Ah. Oh. Again, I like to line things up here. And I like this control to be lined up with this control. So when you line things up like that, it sort of looks really nice. All right, very good. Now, what else do we need here? Where is my other screen? There it is. All right. So that's priority. Okay. Now, what about status? Okay, we talked about status. They're not going to assign that. What about category? Should they be able to assign that to a category? Okay, well, let's set this up for office use. So perhaps like if they have access, so they should have access to change this type of stuff. We'll put it in this little box here. If I can ever resize it, and I messed something up. I don't know what I messed up here. Pretty good. Okay. Copy paste those two things. So we could set a category, and so this would be a like the category. I'm thinking this would be something that the service desk people that their job is taking in this information and sort of dispersing and assigning it to people. They're like the central hub of this whole system. Okay. And what we'll say here is we'll say category. I wouldn't trust a customer coming in, filling out a new one to be doing that themselves. Okay. So categories would be, well, one of the categories we came up with, guys, is just a request. Strictly request. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to bring this back down. So priorities, request status, got categories, require approval. That also is something I don't want the user to determine on for themselves because they may not like, oh, this doesn't even I just need a laptop. Okay, so let's go find either a toggle button or a checkbox. I'm looking here. There we go, an on-off switch. I'm sure they got a checkbox in here as well, but and maybe we'll create like a little business rule here for the interface so that if they select, oh, it's strictly request, well, it definitely is going to be a require approval. Okay. Maybe put that to the side or something like that, you know. Okay. So let them decide on that. Now, what we could do, this screen could be used for two purposes: a customer making requests, but also for that service desk person to go in here and reset things to use that department office only, use only, only there. And we could have like two tabs on there as well. If we run out of space, we could use tabs. We could use multiple screens if we have to. But tabs are sort of nice. All right, so we've got priority, we've got required approval category, okay, which we have that there. All right, well, I'm going to get rid of that one. And we could have the save button over here more prominently shown, okay? What do you guys think? I feel like we're getting really close to being done with this screen, okay? I'm looking for you guys' feedback. Is there anything else that should be here? Now let's look at our different tables. Is there anything else that should be defined there on that screen? Well, the assignment could be, if we're that department, okay? The department is set there. Okay. Something else that let's think about this screen. Ooh, that's a good question. Lil Ju, Lil Ju. So hopefully I pronounced your name right. Can one task be allocated to multiple people? Okay. So no. Now they could. Let me bring this thing down here. What we could do is we can assign a ticket, assign a request to a department, and not set the this user. So this assigned to ID would go to a user. We could just assign it to a department, and then all the people in that department, if no one is assigned, all the notifications will go out to everybody in the department. Okay. So that's one way we could handle that. If we wanted to get really complex here, we would need a map. That would be a many to many relationship between an assignment and the users. And I think if we did that, it would make the system much more complicated. I think to to keep things sort of simple and for people to understand the application, even as users and everything going on, uh, to keep the interface simple is if it needs to be assigned multiple users, you put it as department, and that assignment we'll put in there as a note. Hey, these two people are working on it, but it's this department, whatever. And or you could assign the main lead. Somebody needs to be, the person, the place where the buck stops. Have you ever heard the statement, the buck stops here? The buck stops with me. I'm not going to pass it on to anybody. I'm going to make sure that this person is handled. Like you go into a store, a supermarket, like, hey, do you know where the ketchup's at? Or do you know where I can find the furniture in this super store here? And you can find somebody that works there, like, oh yeah, it's on the other side of the store. It's under aisle, I don't know, something like 18 or 20 or something like that. And you're like, okay, thanks. And you just walk towards that. And then you spend 30 more minutes trying to find it. Well, that person's like, no, I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to walk you over there and make sure you find what you're looking for. That's the type of thing I'm talking about here, where it's like, no, let's make sure one person is assigned to it. Now they might work with a bunch of other people, okay, but somebody needs to be watching that too. Somebody needs to be responsible, okay. So I would say either or, either assign it to a department and the whole department is just getting spammed with emails if something happens with that ticket. So everybody's eyes on it. Let's make sure, let's say we're upgrading a bunch of servers one weekend. We got all hands on deck. Everybody's working, and as we're updating it, the whole department is being emailed and everything. Okay, so moving on here. Gerald, what's the intended name of the screen? Okay, very good question here. It is customer creates ticket screen. That is a good point, because you know what? I want to create this screen so that it handles new requests, but I also want to handle any edits to the ticket. Okay, so let's just say customer ticket edit screen. What about that? I like that, because we can use that name if it's being created. We're editing a ticket, a new ticket. Okay. Also, we're editing an existing ticket. Okay. So what that means is we're going to have all of the request notes in here. Now, if it's a new ticket, it's not going to show it. Okay. So maybe we'll have these tabs. Maybe we'll have ticket details. Okay. Well, where's the tabs at? Let's go find. Aha, look at this. Let me bring that over. This is what's great about creating this design. I mean, can you imagine if you like start creating all this and doing your patch statements, like, oh no, I need to add more stuff. No, it needs to do this. And you're like ripping out code, and then you create bugs for yourself. And bugs are the worst thing when you're creating an application, because bugs, it's one thing if you have an error. But then if you have an error, you can sort of work through whatever. But a bug is like, you may not know it's there. And if somebody's bringing it up, maybe you can't recreate it on your screen. And then it could take you weeks to sort of narrow down or to fix a bug. So it's good that we're doing this. It sort of lends itself to not creating more bugs than what you have to. And I'm going to paste that here. And what we can do here is I'm going to make this a little higher. And I like to Send it back. Look at that. I don't see it. Man, it really went to the back. Okay, that didn't work out very well. Let's bring it to the front. And then we will send backwards. So control arrow down. Okay, cool. What do you guys think of that? Okay. I'm gonna move this down. Let me make it like really big for a moment. And I'm going to select everything that I would want. So the tabs on this screen should be ticket info. Okay, comma. Other thing is department type of use. Okay, so customer wouldn't be able, but if you work in the department, you're going to see this office use. Then we would have assignments. So you can see a history of all the assignments. And then you've also got notes history. So those are the tabs. So we've got a lot more stuff to put in here, guys. That's great. That's fun. I find this stuff fun. All right. You might be having this fun stuff like actually in PowerApps, but it's much cleaner doing it in something like this. All right. So now I'm going to take this. I'm going to select each of these. I see a lot of comments coming. Let's chat here. Can the request screen receive attachments like a picture screenshot? You know what? It should. It should. That'd be cool. Yeah. I like it. Yeah, like I've got a computer problem, and the ticket is my mouse blew up, or my laptop blew up, and they get the ticket. I'm like, what are they talking about? That blew up, and you take a picture, and it's like there's fire. Like here, let me make sure this is all clear. Absolutely, that's a great idea. I love that. All right, so request. Now the question is, do we want to have multiple screenshots, multiple pictures? And I would say yes. I want it to be as flexible as possible. Okay. So what can we do here? Yeah. So I think that we should create that as a new table here. Okay. And we'll call this request. Call it pictures. Do we call it images? Screenshots? Call it request images. I mean, the user's not going to see what the name of the table is anyway. So who cares, right? ID. Title. Like a little short description of what the image is. Okay. Well, we definitely need a place for the image. Now, how I deal with images is I create in SharePoint, I like to create a multiple lines of text, and I'll use the JSON function and serialize that and throw that in there because SharePoint doesn't deal with images very well. And I wrestled when I first started learning Power Apps. Man, I really wrestled with this, really struggled with it because in a Power Apps application, if that user hasn't been to that SharePoint list, sometimes it won't actually pull. If you use a photo column, first of all, photo column is like read only, and you can use the attachments. But if they haven't been authenticated or use that SharePoint site in a while, sometimes I won't even pull it over. So that's what I do. So I'll put in here. We used images somewhere else, didn't we? Yeah, for users. And the type that we use was var binary. So that will sort of tell us what it is. We'll say photo, image, var binary. Okay. And we'll put in here long description, just in case somebody wants to put in a long description besides this title. The title is only give you like 255 characters. Descript. I spelled that right? Descript. And that's going to be varchar for now. Oh, we need a request ID. Okay, now we want to move that up. Okay, all right. So now click on the table, request ID. We're going to drag it from the many side to the one and make sure it says many to one. Okay, very good. Thanks, Liliana, for that suggestion. That is an excellent suggestion. So you have multiple images connected to one request, and they could upload and install that stuff. Absolutely. Angry Bat Voice. Hey, Angry Bat Voice. I follow you on Twitter. Hopefully you're the same guy. Will this screen be where the tech or the user can see change request status, possibly give the user ability to cancel the request if they figured it was figured out on their own? Ah, great. Yeah. Yes. Such great ideas. I love doing this as a group, guys. Okay. So I'm gonna move in this little container, this little tab thing over here like this, and start to move this down a little bit. Okay. So you know what we need in here? We have the assignments, we have images, screenshots, and we have notes. I'll just say notes, and of course, the history of notes is going to be implied. Okay. Um, so Angry Bat Voice. We have a save button down here. Let's move that down. Okay. And I guess the save button will be outside of the little tabs. Okay. And then we'll have this little stock image here. Now I wonder if I change the tab. See, it's not going to take me to like a fresh new tab where I can do things. But what I would do, I need to move this stuff around just really quick here. And guys, I'm going to try to hurry. We're at the 2.5 hour mark. Is I want to at least keep this probably within the 3 hour. I don't want this to be too long. So do you realize, guys, perhaps what the homework will be needed to happen this week? Move this down a little bit. Okay, so we got a lot more space to work with now that we're using tabs. So let's think about the homework that needs to happen here. When we're done here, hopefully within about 30 minutes. Okay, so I'm keeping this Angry Bat Voice comment on the screen because I tend to get sidetracked and everything. Also, I have attention disorder, ADD. So, all right. So got a little graphic there. All right. So let's put in a button here for the users. How should we have the users be able to do this? Okay. Call this close ticket. Okay. Now, what I'm imagining is the user could come in here and close the ticket themselves. Okay. A technician can close the ticket. Anybody can close a ticket that has permission to do so. Either they're the customer or they're within the department in which whatever's going on. Or perhaps the only body that can modify any of this stuff is somebody in the service desk or somebody that is actually currently assigned to that ticket. Okay, so we can have some business rules. Only these people related to the ticket can modify it. Okay, but when anybody who is allowed to clicks on that closed ticket, we'll have a pop-up little window. A pop-up window that will say, "Why are you closing the ticket? Did you figure out this yourself, or have you resolved this?" We'll have other information pop up and say, "Okay, what's going on here?" So yeah, that's how we would do that, and we would have perhaps a closed ticket type of thing. I'm trying to think, like, where are we going to store that? So as we add new features, we're thinking, oh, the system needs to handle some situation. We haven't even thought, this is the first time we've thought about when the ticket closes, where are we storing this when that thing happens? Okay. And what I'm thinking is it's going to be in request notes. Okay. And we want the customer to add in notes like, hey guys, I entered this as a low priority, but actually it's been 2 weeks and I actually need this by tomorrow. They need to go in and add notes. Okay. If they want to close it, let's add a field in here. Um, Whenever a ticket changes status, I think somebody should be prompted to enter notes. Okay, so if somebody tries to close this, change the status from open to closed, they should have to put in here the notes, be prompted to it, and then it ties back to statuses. Okay, so I'm going to put in here status change. And I'm going to make that to be a bit field. Yes, no, true, false, Boolean type of thing. I'm entering a note, and did the status of this ticket change in any way? Yes or no. Okay. And in that case, we will say request status ID. Okay. Now, somebody might think, well, Darren, why have two fields for that? Okay. If there is a request status ID on a note, that means the status change, or we could set it up to be that way. So then we only need two. Well, you know what? Don't get all stingy with your fields. If you can make the system more simple, more intuitive, even from a database standpoint, as long as you're not creating something that's going to create inefficiencies in the application, having multiple fields for this is good. Also, we could always capture what the status of the request is of the ticket with every single note. So we could like narrow it down. Hey, when this thing was in progress, I want to look at all the notes for a ticket while it was in progress. Okay. So for that example, we should have two different fields. Okay. So I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. So they close the ticket. We're going to require they enter some notes, and then we're going to say, yep, the status changed. Okay. So I'm thinking as we add new features, where is it going to go in the database? Okay. I'm going to go into the next comment here. Gerald, pesky question. Is it possible for you to share a live link to Balsamiq Wireframe for the customer edit screen? Um, it's not a pesky question, by the way. I'm always grateful you guys bring this stuff up, because if one person's bringing it up, there could be dozens, or over. Let's say this video's out here for 3 years. There could be hundreds of people wanting to get at this stuff. Okay, and what I suggest is, hey, join the group. I'll be there, right? Okay, how do I share this Balsamiq? Now, what I would normally do if sharing this on a team or whatever, I just take a screenshot of this and throw it into an email. Okay. But I don't think there's any, because this is actually the desktop version of Balsamiq. So it's here on my machine. They have a cloud version, and perhaps they have that in the cloud version. And I paid for the desktop version, so it was only a one-time fee. But that would probably be an upside of doing the cloud version, perhaps. What's the plus sign do? Just gives me a new wireframe. Share. Look at that. Yeah. Allow public reviewers. Yeah. So you could do that. Let me go look for that icon in my desktop version. And I don't see it. Okay. So make a mental note. If you like Balsamiq, that's one of the plus signs to use in the cloud version for paying the $10 a month or whatever it is. is that you can share it real easily. What I'm going to do, so this isn't going to be, I know the database tables that could change over time. Perhaps we're adding things, whatever, but this is something we probably will only use at the beginning. And as time goes on, we'll just like, okay, well, we've modified the screen much more beyond what we did the wireframes for. I'm gonna sort of paste in, as I'm done here today, I'm gonna paste in images of this into the Facebook group. And I think that's probably gonna be good for now. And I do have a thought, which is as an creating this insider group, as we do like a separate course, doing a separate, completely different app, we might create a separate Facebook group, just sort of keep everything siloed. And you join one group to learn one app, and it's all right there. That's just a thought I'm sort of kicking around in my head. Okay, so yeah, so going back to angry bat voice is this is a great thing that you brought up. Closed ticket, have a dropped, we have a pop-up window, and we will put that into request notes, and it will tie back to the status here. Okay, and we could probably put that up here. All right. So on every status change, we could have a note associated with that. But the question is, yeah, this should be many to one. Yeah. So every request note will have a status associated with it. All right. And we have notes in there. Okay, this is good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Okay. So what I would do in a wireframe like this, okay, we have ticket info. And I'm going to duplicate this. Okay. So we'll say for this one here, we're going to rename this. We got customer creates ticket, and we'll say tab 1. Simple. All right. And then over here, we've got tab 2. So on tab 1, we don't want this type of stuff to be seen. Perhaps. Tabs really simplify a UI. Okay. Make it smaller. Okay. And then for the office use, we won't have this stuff. So now that there's his own tab and the customers can't get into office use, maybe that we could set up so they could see it. You know what I mean? But I select them all here. Ah, it didn't allow me to do that. Okay. In fact, we don't need that now because we have a whole tab for it. Let's try that again. No. There we go. So now that we got another tab, everything doesn't have to be so scrunched up so bad. Okay. Okay. All right. What about assignments? All right. Let's duplicate this one. Okay. Okay. So now for the assignments, I don't want category in there. I don't want that. I don't need that and that. But what I am thinking is, ooh, I don't want to do those together. Okay, assign to. Now, I want a grid of information here. Looking for it. Okay. And we'll say person assigned to. Huh. They have curly braces in here that I guess denote a link, which we don't want links here right now. All right, so I'm looking at the comments here. So, Lil Ju, can we show the status completion percentage if it's multiple requests? Example, install a software on 100 machines. Oh, that's excellent. I love it. Is there a way to show what percentage of the work is done? Yes. Thank you. That is amazing. This is great. I love this. All right. And how I'm going to do that in the data is when they enter a note, okay, that should happen here. I think this is the best place to put it. Okay. So we'll say percentage complete. And I misspelled that. Okay. And instead of an integer, we'll make that something like a decimal number. Okay. 50% complete. All right. So this on gallery in Power Apps. Okay, so now that I've got that percentage complete, let's move that up a little bit. There'll be decimal. Okay. This is a gallery in Power App. Yes, absolutely. In fact, I hardly ever use a data table that the users will see. I might create a data table really quick, simple, just to look at data real quick. Okay. But yes, this will be a gallery. Absolutely. In fact, let me try to size up this gallery, make it a little wider and stuff. Okay. So somebody wants to see who's assigned to it and all the history of all the assignments. So there's going to be people's names in here. Boom. And you know what? Instead of age, we can have percentage complete. Okay. And then we could have, what else do we have for, okay, so these are assignments. Okay, I'm getting some things confused. Okay, because we have request notes and we have percentage complete. Okay, so the assignments, that's what I'm thinking of. Okay. So we wouldn't put percentage complete for the assignments, but we will for the notes as we get over there to notes. Okay. And I sort of like I'm thinking about the order here. The images will be part of what the user puts in there. Okay. So the first two tabs will be like what the customer enters. And so all this other stuff. Okay. I feel like instead of calling it tab 1, 2, 3, we should actually name this. Okay. So say hit info. Okay. The second one will be office use. Okay. Office use, yes. But you know what? I didn't. Need to go back and update these, make sure they're all the same. Okay. Yeah, assignments. Okay, who it's being assigned to, and that bottom row is sort of messing with me a little bit, so I'm gonna take that out. What type of stuff would we want to know for assignments? So we got the person, we got that in there. Okay. Um, okay, we also want to put in, or to allow people to put in notes, to actually show those notes. But we also want to have in there department ID. No, that would be set at the ticket level. Assignment type ID. Okay, assignment type. Okay, remember that could be either an individual or a department. Okay, so that would be important to put here on the assignments. If it needs approval, yes, no, okay. And then we'll also say the notes at the end, because that can be really long, okay? So notes on the assignment. So person will probably be 99% of the time what it is going to be, okay? So what are these numbers? Person. Okay. So it looks like the little X that. And the rest of the stuff would be are some notes. I don't want to be creative here on the spot and try to do anything fancy here, but okay. It'll look like that. Now, what I'd want to do over here to the side is have a rectangle. There's the image. It's got a little X on it. Instead of just a happy face. I don't want somebody to think, oh, that's going to be this face of the user. So that'd be good to replace there. So I was thinking of like a little thing here where we could let me copy a button here. And it will just be for this tab. And say reassign. A little button here. And let's make this to have a width of 200. And we'll make the button width be 200. Here, assign it. Well, what we need to do is we need to modify all this stuff. So there's the person. Then we need an assignment type. Okay. And this is going to be person instead of department. I wonder if I can put department here and see what it does. Yeah, okay. So let's say we assigned it to the HR department. How about that? HR department. Just show like different values in here. Be nice, right? Let me ask if this is be a gallery. Absolutely, it would be a gallery. Okay, assignment needs approval. Well, you know what? We've got something on another screen here, right here. Let's copy that. It feels like we're designing quite a few screens here, right? So require approval is a field for the ticket that they can mark up front. But here on the assignment, what we're going to say is needs approval. It'll be the same type, okay? And then the rest of the stuff, the rest of the space that we have here, what we'll do, we'll get a multi-line here, right? And perhaps that will be the same width, okay? So as the ticket comes in, we can assign it, do a reassign, and into that information, it becomes part of the history of the ticket. How do you guys like that? All right, so let's look at the notes here. Yeah, so we're gonna do that. This is on a gallery, yes, okay. So these are just assignments, okay. Now, apart from assignments, we'll have a separate screen that's very much like this one, okay, and we'll call this request notes. Okay. Okay. What do we have for notes? We have title, show level ID. So we have the notes in there. What about the person created? Okay. So who's adding this note? Who added that note? Okay. So when they click on this notes tab, who created the note? And instead of assignment type, this is going to be the show level. Okay. Assignment type. Show level. What's an example of a show level? If it's viewable by everybody, viewable by the department, or viewable by just the technician. Okay. So based on that, this will be filtered. We'll use a filter statement on this gallery. So only show what that user should be able to see. All right. Show level. Say global. You know what? These values should be. We should have that in our document here. Okay. So this is request notes. We have a request notes here. Okay. And really, I should go through my whole diagram and make sure every table is in here, okay? Because we have a type here, show level ID, okay? ID, we got title, notes, and then we got show levels and ID, title. This field references this down here. And so possible, and then we've got sort order. Title, we should go in here and say anyone can see. Who can view request? You know, we can make this who can see whatever, who can view whatever, who can view. I'll say something, okay, because we could use this table for something else. Okay, so we've got ID title. Okay, so anyone, we have department, internal to department handling the ticket. Anyone who can view the ticket. Then you could say, okay, then you say only technician. Okay, so that's what's going to be in there. And it's sort of the same thing, global, person, and department, okay? So this is request notes. We could say, is there a status change? Change in status whenever this note happened, okay? And then we also need a new column in here called what is the status of the ticket? Status when that note was entered. Okay. Value example values would be new, would be opened, in progress, and we've typed it up before, and then closed. Okay, so let's look at that. You see that? And really, based on this data I'm entering, these should be checked on all of them because, as you can see, they're changed. Now, I have a space before the word opened. Yeah, there we go. Take care of that. All right, so you guys see how that would be done? All right, so now we also need to be entered, no, so assigned to, no, whoever is the user on the screen entering this note, okay, is going to be put in there. Okay, so they're not going to be able to change that. Okay, so I'm going to take that out. Okay, so we have show level. Now, I don't know that I really like to drop down. I think I'd like to use a radio button. Let's go find radio buttons. Oh, here's buttons in general. So we can use this for buttons instead of this save and close. Okay. So that's all kinds of cool stuff. Look, you got a little calendar too. That looks cool, doesn't it? Looks like our date picker in PowerApps. So, hey, Jason, happy Saturday, friends. Hey, man, thanks for stopping by. I'm starting to feel I'm not getting a lot of comments. I'm starting to feel like I'm here alone. Although I see there's quite a few of you still here, so I really appreciate the comments. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, happy Saturday. And I think we're on the tail end of this. I just wanted to finish out these tabs. And the homework for next Saturday is to wireframe all the screens. Okay. And then we'll do a check-in midweek. And we're like, okay, what screens do you guys have? What do your screens look like? Post them in the Facebook group. Hey, this is what my screen looks like. What do your guys' screen looks like? You know? All right. So we've got assignment. We got show level. Oh, I'm looking for radio buttons. I get easily sidetracked here. There's a checkbox, by the way, if we ever need a checkbox for something. Okay. Of course, we have the toggle. So toggles sort of look cool. They're more of the way things are going in a more modern UI design type of thing. Here's an iOS menu. What does that look like? What does that look like? Oh, wow. That sort of looks cool. Looking for the radio buttons. List with icons. Okay, well, we can do something like that. I know there's radio buttons in here somewhere. There's a shape. There's tabs. Okay, I don't see it right now, but this thing will work for now. And I'm going to say, where were my show levels? I'll move this up for now. Okay. Anyone? Apartment. Tech only. I like it. Show border, absolutely. Okay. We need to move all this stuff down. Okay, so we have notes. Submit notes will be our button at the bottom. Move that a little more down. Okay. Is there a status change? Move this down. Now, question is, should we allow the user to change the status as they're entering notes, or should we? I'm thinking no. I don't think that we should allow them to say, "Oh yeah, this is a status change." No. What you should do, I'll move this down. Whoa, no. You guys' comments coming in, so I'll address the comments here in a bit. We could have a drop down up here. Actually, I don't want to move it. I just want to copy it for the moment. Up at the top. Okay, and we could say change status. It needs to be wider. Oh, come on. Close ticket or resolved. Okay. Now the customer could see this, but I wouldn't allow them to edit it unless they click on this close ticket. I want them to be able to change the status. So closed ticket is pretty much changing the status to closed. We could have this to say change ticket status. Okay, and then a pop-up would come up with notes. Are you changing the change status to this or what? So just going to throw out those ideas, and we'll have to deal with which way we're going to go when we get into Power Apps. Okay. They change it. So that would determine. I need another label up here. This is called show level. And this would be perhaps, let me go look at my diagram. The notes, change status. we could put that there. And of course, it'll default to what the current status is. So I don't know if we really want this. Well, perhaps we would just display this, because if you're on the other tabs, you want to see what the status is at the top. Maybe not make that a drop down. But the thing is, I would probably, as long as the ticket's been created, I'll allow a customer to come in here and add their own notes. Like, hey, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And then we could add in an image. Like people can upload a screenshot. Like, hey, I just resolved this and this is how I solved the problem. And you know what we could do, guys? We could create a component, an additional app that is a knowledge-based application that would go along with this ticketing system. So, hey, you need to reset your start time. I need my password reset. Boom. There's a little knowledge base ties into a SharePoint list for the knowledge base. Says, oh, did you know how to reset your password as you do this, this, this? If you're having a problem with this, you might want to try this. And that would probably cut down on a lot of tickets. So a knowledge-based system would be a great next system to build. Okay. So let's see here. Saurb. So hopefully I pronounced your name right. Tali Lay. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for the emoji love there. And then we've got Angry Bat Voice. Can you link to the Facebook group? Not sure if I'm in for the series. Absolutely. So let me link you to that. Yeah, put that in there. Very good. Thanks for asking. So there might be other people that are wondering the same thing. Okay, so what that is a link to like a little survey. It's a student intake form. And then I just want to know more about where you guys are coming from, what problems you're dealing with, that type of thing. So it sort of steers what I'm doing with the course, what I'm doing with the group and everything. And then when you fill that out, it's going to forward you onto the Facebook group, okay, automatically. All right, so what else we got? We have, okay, status change. So we might want to make that something else. Okay, so we also want to say like a button here. We could say browse, and upload photo. Okay, so we can put that there. And you know what? We could, after we browse for it, we probably want to display the image. Yeah. That they just uploaded. Okay. And also, what we could have here is images. Images can be displayed in our gallery. Okay. All right. So these are all the notes. Okay. Percentage complete. Okay. So we need to put in a percentage complete. And you know what? We could do a slider for that. Wouldn't that be cool? Slider. Boom. And I need to move stuff around. We'll run out of space a little bit here. That in here. This has turned out to be a really cool application. We really haven't done very much in PowerApps yet, have we? Okay, there we go. Percentage complete. And let me open this up and hopefully I'll be able to change that. I don't think I will be able to, but what other things can we put in here? All right, so I think that's pretty good for the notes. So guys, this screen is going to be the heart of the application, I believe. This is some good stuff. Well, guys, I really enjoyed doing this with you. We're over the 3-hour mark. And can I ask you guys to do a favor? If you got anything out of this, would you mind giving the video a like and even a comment? A comment is actually really valuable, even more valuable than a like. So YouTube actually sees the engagement and sort of boost the video and lets other people know, like you, that it's good content. So please do like. I don't ask for a subscription. Typically people will subscribe if they really like the content and they know they're going to come back for more. So sometimes people recommend you really should ask for a subscription. But guys, I'm almost at the 3,000 mark. Let me see where I'm at right now. I am at 2,977 subscribers. So I've come a long way within YouTube. And just so if you guys are interested here. So this is where I'm at. And well, let's see here. I thought it was going to show me something else here. Yeah, this drop down. Let's say lifetime. So you see things that sort of picked up. So I want to thank you guys for that. For all you guys that have been following me and subscribing and liking and commenting, I really am grateful for that. And I know that yeah, I'm just trying to create some value out here for you guys and put out there for the community. And you know, my dream is to be able to quit my day job and do this full time for you guys. So just think about, you know, I try to create at least one video a week. I'd probably be able to create a lot more, you know, so that's my dream eventually for that to happen. But thanks for all your involvement here, guys. And uh, and then also what I would want to say is, oh, I do have another comment here. So let's see. Great material and great personality. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. So let me give you guys one more word. And I gotta go find it here within StreamYard. It's here we go. All right, here we go. You guys ready? Here it is. Guys, for some reason, YouTube thinks you're gonna like this video next. Let's see if they're right. Or you can select this playlist, which I've selected for you based on the content you're currently watching. Guys, gotta hurry. Click one of them. Otherwise, YouTube's gonna autoplay some other video, which you probably don't want. Thanks.